That's right, ladies and gentlemen, live from the Screwball Whiskey Studios. Got an empty bottle of Screwballs here. The fine guests of the In My Stuff podcast, as of late, have very much so enjoyed the Screwball Whiskey over the last few weeks. And before, I will in the audio version, I'll have that little song playing there too. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that out like that, ladies and gentlemen, and make it sound all nice and quiet there for a little bit. And then we're going to go hot on this audio here and say, after all this time, ladies and gentlemen, the great and powerful Brian Roessler is in the house. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me. It has been, honestly, I've been wanting to do this for close to a year now, but schedules being what schedules are.
I'm with you, man.
It's a little tough to sometimes jive up musician schedules, unfortunately, in this town.
Oh, absolutely. We are on the same page there. Hello, brother Steve Blevins in the house of WrestleMania Games. We got Matty P listening. Before we go farther, I want to invite you guys to, just in case, we ramble on too long and we lose you at some point, please go follow at Brian_Roessler_music. Is that how it goes on Instagram?
Yes, I think so. I'm trying to remember if there's the underscores there or if it's all one word, but I think it's underscores.
I think it's underscore because yes. I just tagged you. So yes, go do that. Follow all of him, his social media, Brian Roessler Music on Facebook, right?
Yes.
And Twitter as well, right?
There's no music on Twitter.
Okay.
They for some reason...
That's fine.
I put it in and they're like, try again. And I'm like, what? So.
Yeah. Please go follow him on social media for some amazing songwriting and just content in particular. Your social media is entertaining to me. I enjoy it. And please go to inmystuffpodcast.com where all of the social media for the podcast will be. And if you want to follow me at Yonder Wizard Kelsey Hudgins on Facebook and Twitter, Yonder Wizard on Instagram, then there's where you can do that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please, if you're watching this, please click the subscribe button. Now that I've got all that out of the way, I just said that all in the intro, but I want to make sure that I get it on the YouTube as well. So forgive me for pounding the point. Anywho, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty darn good, honestly.
That's good.
Summer, yeah, it's a little hot for my taste, but as my dad said, you don't have to shovel humidity. So,
that's true.
Come wintertime, it's totally worth a little bit of suffering right now for what we have in the wintertime. But yeah, outdoor shows aren't that much fun because of the temperature, but short of that, I'm doing really well, honestly. Been actually had some time to write. Got out of town for 2 weeks. And,
that's nice.
And mentally, it was the absolute break I needed. It wasn't a vacation. It went back to my hometown of Pittsburgh. I was here. I was there. I was pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, you look busy on that trip.
I was super busy, but for all of the physical exhaustion, there was that much just mental revitalization.
Yeah.
So it's I'm really doing well off that trip, and I've got about a day to sleep a little bit.
That's good, man. Sleep's important.
I mean, I'm one of those 5 to 6 average an hour a night persons. So
I think I'm 8. I think I'm 8 to 9. And I don't know why I have to get that much, but I'm not very pleasant to deal with if I don't get my 8.
I'm not a morning person even with that lack of sleep, but I'm also not one of those people that can wake up and jump into the shower and go. I know that I've got to get myself up an hour and a half, 2 hours before I got to leave, just so I can kind of ease into it. So I know that cuts out of my sleep time. But honestly, during the summertime, if I get a nap, then I get a nap during the day. If I don't, and I don't. So summer's been treating me pretty well so far.
That's good, man.
So yeah.
I'm the same way. I actually today, knowing that I would have to be prepared by 2, I set an alarm for 12:15 just to make sure I'd be up, and I woke up a little bit before that. But yeah, I would say 2 hours until leave the house time. I have to have that just so you can.
Yeah.
That whole waking up, jumping in the shower, and going that doesn't fly for me.
And I got to get mentally prepared, for lack of a better way to put it, to be around people. I'm about 60% extrovert, 40% introvert, but the introvert is the morning person.
Oh, so. Yeah. I would say that I think I'm similar to that. I might be a little bit, but it may be inverted. I think I'm 40% extroverted and 60% introverted. And I think that I can turn on that extrovert at any time. It just depends on how long it lasts for.
Yes.
You know, and whenever I hear it, like, okay, this isn't going to last much longer. Whenever I feel that coming on, I'll just, quietly leave. The Irish farewell.
Understood completely. And what's interesting, though, too, is, like, I switch over from the mix me to try to force 100% extrovert me right before I go on stage, too.
Oh yeah.
And so I've developed it into the thought that it's actually a character I'm playing when I jump up on stage rather than the complete me. But it is me.
Preaching to the choir.
It is me, but it's just this portion of me that I've almost turned into a caricature of itself. And that character is a lot more confident. That character is a lot more outgoing. That character is a lot more extra, for lack of a better way to put it. And it's a lot of times one of my least favorite parts of a show is about 15 minutes after the show ends, when you're getting off that extrovert high and you're trying to regain your own energy in introvert mode, and you still have to talk to people, and it's like, I'm gonna go tear down now,
right?
and it's like, and it's not that I don't want to talk to them, it's just that it's like, okay, I've given up all my energy, and I can't take energy from you now. I've got to recharge from within.
Yes. Dude, I am right there with you, man. That the energy comment of all, I understand that these people want to speak with me, and they want to, communicate, and they want to, feel included into this thing. And I'll be doing that. Like and sometimes it might come off as me being a jerk, which I'm not really being a jerk. That's just how I am, I'll be wrapping cables and like turn the other way and talking to them from behind, or like they'll be behind me talking, and I'll be replying like that. And I know that might not be ideal for them. Like they're like, man, that guy was kind of a jerk maybe. And I get that, but I can't help it. That's just, sometimes I spend all of my allotted energy for the day in that 3 hours when I'm playing, and then whenever it's over, it's done. Like I don't have anything left. And if you want honesty, that's the times when I'll be not complaining, but I'll just like be brutally honest about anything I'm asked. And I don't mean to, but
me too. And what's funny is that's also the time that we have to ask to get paid too.
Right. Which I'm good with that, man. I'm good. I'm fine with that. I'm good to go with that, man. I can say. And it's funny because and nothing against them, I love them to death, but I see. The other day we were doing this gig in Chapin. Did you see the aftermath of that? Not the aftermath, but the rain that showed up out of nowhere, and we got like monsooned on.
I listened last night, so I didn't see any of the videos, but I heard the videos. So.
Okay, how did that turn out, by the way, on audio? Would it work okay?
Yeah, it worked fine.
Okay.
It surprised me though. There was you could hear a lot of background people there. Like the people didn't sound like they were affected. They're like, well, we're stuck here. Let's drink and party. So
really,
it sounded like there was still a good crowd there.
Yeah, dude. Well, there was. Yeah, that was true. There was. It was just where we were. rain started coming in, and we just immediately just unplugged the system just because we're not gonna gonna risk that, man. Like it's not worth it.
No,
it's not worth it. And they were all happy, but we did this gig, and as I was breaking down, and this is out of my time frame. Like I'm usually I'll sleep till 2 to 3. Is that me or you?
I'm not ringing or anything.
Huh, that's weird. Sorry, guys. Forgive me for that. It might have been, it was probably me. That's not in my time frame. I usually sleep till 2 to 3 every day, and then I'm up till, 6 or, 5 or 6 in the morning. So this particular gig, I had to wake up at 7 to be to where we leave by 9. And it's just outside of my normal hours of operation. And I was like, can you guys, or I was like, Smitty, if you want to, while I'm doing this, if you want to like talk to her about the check, while I'm getting this stuff done, like just because I normally handle all that stuff.
Yes.
And it was just funny because Smitty, I asked Adam, I was like, when you get to the truck, let me know if Smitty got the check or not, because if not, I'm gonna just give me a yes or a no from the truck across the way, and then I'm gonna come with the rest of the equipment, a last load of stuff. So Adam goes yes and I was like, okay, cool. So I go walk into the truck, and he was like, oh no, I said yes, like Smitty asked for it. And I was like, I asked for the check, and she walked away from me, and I was like, that probably means she was going to get it. You might want to hang around, but it's just like I'm like right there all the time, man. Like I don't know. I usually handle that stuff, so I mean, I know the rundown and getting paid, man. I'm on autopilot after that point. All I know how to do is wrap cables and get paid, though. Like I don't know how to talk to people.
And the fact that you could do that after waking up that early too is, I was Memorial Day weekend, I played the breakfast sets for the Waccamaw Getaway Festival.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And one of the things that I said both days is I said, like the first thing I said in welcoming the audience was, you're going to hear something from a songwriter that you won't hear very often from a songwriter. Good morning. Ain't
that the truth?
So the fact that I could sing in the morning, you can wake up at 7 and still think about all of those.
Well, it's performer adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's, when you step on the stage, something else takes over, and you know that.
Yeah, absolutely. But even thinking about the business aspects of it, none of us like the business aspects of it when we're completely awake, let alone when we've had to shift our normal paradigm or our normal schedule. So the business aspects of the music business seem just rougher when it's not that normal. Do this, do this. So
right.
So for something like when you have to wake up at 7 a.m. to go to Columbia, I'm sure the business aspect of it seems even more businessy, for lack of a better
it does. It feels more like work then, for sure. And man, I don't mind that. I don't mind those. Sometimes I actually enjoy. Secretly, I enjoy that just because it makes me remember. that this is work. This is work. This is something to be taken seriously, and it's hard for me to. It's hard for me to get Adam convinced. I love you, Adam. It's hard for me to get Adam convinced to like sometimes be serious about it because he has a regular job and stuff like that. Which I love you, Adam. We've talked about this, but it's different when it's like all you do, and I know that you do the teaching as well.
Yes,
but still, like I looking back, I see you as a songwriter first, or as a musician first, in a way. Like that seems like that's your.
It's funny. I've had a few full-time jobs since I've been here, but no matter what, my full-time. There's so many people that are defined or even define themselves or defined by their full-time job.
Yeah,
I've managed not to have that happen to me in 18 almost 19 years down here now. And I think that's a really, really cool thing because if you're defined by anything, that just puts you in a box.
Right.
And I never wanted to be in that box. Am I a songwriter? Yeah. Do I like that definition? Yeah, but I'm also an entertainer at times too.
Right.
I've got no problems throwing down a show of covers. Mind you, they're the covers I want to play.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, interestingly enough, I try to play my cover sets more for the bar staff of where I'm working rather than the patrons. Because they're the ones that the bar staff have to listen to me all night. Tables come and go in an hour.
Right.
But the bar staff has to listen to me for 3 hours. So if it's a cover show, I'm playing for the bar staff and playing what they want to hear rather than what the tourists want to hear, just because they're the locals. Honestly.
Yeah, they are. And not only that, well, and also doing the cover songs and every now and again throwing in the stuff that the crowd wants to hear. That's gonna do better for the bar because the bar is gonna make more money. They're gonna do better in tips and such, and also. That's how you get far down here is playing to the bartenders and making sure you take care of your bartenders, tip them well after your gig.
Oh, absolutely.
Always take care of that was one big thing that we went with in the beginning was we were always going to take very good care of our bartenders or anybody who takes care of us. And we'll say that on the mic, like your bartenders and take good care of your bartenders and servers are taking good care of you, return the favor.
Absolutely.
We say that every time.
And places where I play regularly, I actually name the bartenders by name too, because that can help to humanize.
I'm so bad with names.
But the way, and I might be wrong, but in my own head, it humanizes them to the audience rather than here's the waitress. No, here is such and such person.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of here's the bartender, it's like here's Steve. That sort of stuff. And I think if they're more humanized, then they're more likely to get better tips that way too. So
for sure.
But if it's a place
that's a good way to think of it.
If it's a place where the bar staff rotates out, and I'm like, I just met you and I can't remember your name, then I'll say something general bar staff. But if it's a place I play all the time, I am always using. Like if it's Atlas Tap House or Island Bar Surfside.
Yeah, for sure.
Those places I'm always using the bartenders by name.
I guess I will too. If I know the bartender's name, I definitely will use that. But I try to be funny for most of the time. Like I'll try to be comedic the best that I can, and I'll just make jokes and talk about the bartender. We're like have carry on conversations. I like to talk to I like to talk, man.
Yes.
I like to carry on conversations with people. And I'll be hollering across the room, have them back and forth, and I like to open that up to the room. Some people will think of it as heckling, but I kind of I like that. I enjoy that. I enjoy the communication between me and the room.
I do too. I find myself doing that more though during off season than I do during summer for some reason, and I think it's because I recognize the faces more in the off season, and I'm just not sure. Okay, how's this table going to react? Are they going to get my sarcasm? Are they going to? Yeah. Are they going to laugh? Are they going to think I'm a jerk? That sort of stuff.
Right.
Where the locals, they all know I'm a jerk already. So.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I sort of look at that as the same way as a challenge for me. Like when I see a crowd, a room full of people that I don't know anybody, I'm like, okay, well, will my stuff work here too? Will this bit that I've got, these funny things that I have, because I do that a lot now. I've been writing, of course I write a lot of songs, but here lately I've just been having these funny ideas about ways to talk between the songs, because that's sort of my niche.
Yes.
Is the communication between songs. It's I'm talking about half of the time that I'm playing, it's about half and half for me. But that really works for the crowd because they feel included, and it's some people might not like that, but the majority of people are very much into, communicating.
Yeah, and I think the later the show is too, the more it's apt to that. Something that starts at 7, 8 o'clock. might be a little bit better than something that starts at 5, where they're
For
just
sure.
like, we're just here for dinner.
They
dude.
just got off work and they want to, hit happy hour before it's over.
Yeah,
You're right.
But the crowd that comes, like the post dinner crowd, I think that's far more open for the conversation. Just in my experience, and that might
For sure.
But I don't play the inlet much, and you're here in the inlet all the time, so that the
Man.
inlet could be a different challenge, a different vibe altogether in terms of playing than say Myrtle Beach or even Surfside or the places in North Myrtle Beach that I play. I'd like to say Conway more, but there's not much music going on in Conway right now. We're trying to change that, but
I've heard.
But there's not much music going on in Conway just because we need more venues in Conway, that's all.
There was a couple of spots that I played in Conway that I won't name them just because, but you get in there and you play, and it seems like, now there's a couple of gigs in Conway that are great, and the obvious music venues like Warehouse and such is great. Mm-hmm. But there was a couple more places over in Conway where I was just like, you're in there and you're playing music, and it just seems like, man, we are in the way.
Yeah,
we're in the way of this room.
It's like, not only are we acoustic wallpaper, but we're the tacky acoustic wallpaper no one wants to look at.
Yeah, and no matter how good you are, no matter how well you do, wow. Oh. Does it? Wow. Apparently my computer will go into that screensaver mode all by itself, even though there's all this stuff going on in the background. Oh, well. Wow. Sorry. That kind of threw me off. But yeah, no matter how good you do or how good, how well you do your art, you're gonna play those gigs where you're in the way, where you are not necessary, and like. And I know for sure, me and Smitty have talked about it a few times, but it's just like, now we get to do what we want. Yes. Now nobody's paying attention to us.
Yeah, and that's how I treat this.
Now we can do what we want. Let's just practice. Let's just brush up on something we don't really know.
And sometimes those gigs turn into let's see if this song will just draw them out. And then I'll throw something out like by They Might Be Giants or something like that. That's just like so off the wall that you really wouldn't necessarily, like, two people would be like, is that guy playing They Might Be Giants right now?
But for those two people, they will talk about that, right?
Yes.
I've noticed that sometimes in those gigs, not every time, but sometimes in those situations, when you get to where you okay, I'm gonna just do what I want. I'm gonna play They Might Be Giants. For me, it's like I'm gonna play the first 3 songs from Transatlanticism by Death Cab. Nice. I'm gonna do the first 3 songs off of that album in a row. Just that'll kill 10 minutes. And then you'll have these two people that'll come up to you, man, that Death Cab was awesome. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that you'll realize that these people you might just be playing them the wrong songs. And when you do the stuff that you like, they would like that. They want to hear what you like to play.
Absolutely, because I think honestly too, and that's why, and don't get me wrong, when I talk about not playing for tourists, there's a lot of things that I play for the bar staff that the tourists are going to like too, and I understand that. But just playing those things that I like too mean I'm going to do a better version of it too, as opposed to just going through the motions of it. And I honestly like to think of it more as interpretations than covers, because there's not too much that I haven't changed the key on to fit my own voice, honestly. There's not too much that I've changed the tempo to fit my style of strumming.
Exactly.
There's not too much that I've just done little tweaks because, well, that bridge sounded really cool on a keyboard, but I'm not going to be able to do that bridge on an acoustic guitar.
You have to transpose.
Yeah. So I like to think of the covers more as interpretations, and even by doing that, I think that attracts certain audience people in that they're like, oh wow, that was a really cool version of that, as opposed to cover of that. And I like when you said version, that's what clicked in my head there was instead of a cover of that really cool version. And I think that's what separates a lot of the people from being just background noise to an actual show as well too. So,
oh, for sure.
Because if you sound like the original, then it's easy to, especially for like a sit down kind of bar. If it's a dance floor and people want to dance and you sound like more like the original, if you're a full band, I get that idea.
Yeah.
But if it's like everybody's chilling at the bar kind of thing, I think that the patrons appreciate the interpretations more than just sounding like the jukebox.
For sure. And I'm down. I'm 100% of the belief that the person who wrote this song had something in mind when they wrote it, and I want to honor that. But I also don't want them to be like, oh, well, I could just listen to this on the radio. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to make your own version of something, and you have to make it, like you say, you have to make it comfortable for your playing style.
Yeah.
And as long as once you do that, I think like for solos and songs that we'll play, like I like to do the right solo. I like to do the correct solo, just because sometimes if it's noteworthy anyway.
Yes.
But like sometimes I do like to take my own interpretation, and that seems like the mark of acoustic guitar players. And God love him, I hate the situation that he has brought down on himself with Ryan Adams. I don't know if you're familiar with the Ryan Adams situation. It's awful. But, I mean, he's textbook on taking a song and making it yours. Mm-hmm. Somebody else's song and making it yours.
Did that with an entire Taylor Swift album.
And, man, I mean, I've never listened to a Taylor Swift album, and I don't play any Ryan Adams anymore just because of the situation.
Yeah.
Just because I don't support what he's done.
No, I've stopped playing the 2 songs of his that I played before too.
Yeah, and it's just I hate that. I hate that such an amazing songwriter and such an amazing artist would do something like that. And I know this is totally off subject for what we're talking about, but how disrespectful is that of him to his fans? Mm-hmm. To have put us in this situation, or the people who enjoy his music, to put us in this situation.
There's a certain attitude amongst people once they've reached a certain place where they can just do whatever they want. And some people, for some reason, that place is really early in the process. Some people, it takes a while for them to get to that place. I feel like he was starting on that path early and nobody nipped it in the bud. And had somebody nipped it in the bud early, I don't think we would be talking about this right now, to be honest with you. But one would also argue that those same demons are the same reason why he is so prolific, too.
Yeah.
And that's the weird dichotomy of art is... where is the balance between loving the art and hating the artist? It's individual for every situation, and it's a hard balance to find, honestly.
I think it'll take a few hundred years.
Yeah,
for that to wear off on him.
Yeah, and for him, he went well past that point.
Right.
But there's people who won't watch a movie just because they disagree with somebody's political position. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous right there. That's just beliefs based on, how you grew up and, your own cultural situation and life situation rather than I am going to...
You can raise that up a bit if you like.
Rather than I am going to physically do something wrong that messes with somebody's life.
Yeah.
And there's an obvious line between those two, but there are a lot of gray areas in between those two where it's like, okay, so that person not only has these beliefs, but they protested against something that I believe in. And it's like, for a lot of people, they can't separate the person from the protest or the artist from the art.
Yeah.
And I know for everybody that is a different line for them in terms of how they accept the artist or the person, and it's really, from a communication standpoint, one of the toughest things to start looking at in terms of how do we try to find common ground but still accept everybody's individuality in the process too, in how they react to these things and how they present their protests as well too, because for the people protesting, their protests are absolutely valid because of their life experiences. How do we find that common ground to say, hey, I know your life experiences are different than mine. How can we talk about this? Because the people who are upset at the protesters have different life experiences that might make them see the world differently. But what we need to do, I think, one of the closest things, and I just blanked on the rapper's name. Joyner, I think is the last name. The I'm Not Racist video from about a year and a half ago.
Yes.
That was one of the most amazing videos I saw, because that takes both sides of that argument, and
it does.
And the video was super powerful too.
That got me.
It really got me too. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing where, how do we find that common ground in a way that video did, where it was honestly an argument with a hug at the end.
Yes.
And honestly, life should be an argument with a hug at the end, I think.
That's what I think. And you know, I'm in the same boat. It's just the argument part of it. I feel like it should just be more of a conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't see anything wrong with that. And you can have a negative conversation, you know, not a negative conversation, but you could have a conversation in which you disagree with somebody without trying to convince them to believe what you believe.
Absolutely.
It's easier, I feel, to let somebody, you know, believe what you want to believe. And I'm going to believe what I want to believe, and we can coexist in this. We don't have to be defined by that. It's sometimes just easier to drop a subject if you're not going to agree on something, then move on.
Yes, absolutely. And it's kind of like, along those lines, going back to Ryan Adams, it's like, okay, we can see that there's a definite line crossed, but then there are other artists who have crossed lines for some people, but not other people, and and that's where we need to find the common ground. Everybody can agree on Ryan Adams, but honestly, if you think about it, somebody like Justin Bieber speeding at 120 miles through his neighborhood could have killed people.
Yeah.
And he's lucky he didn't, but
for the parents who lost a child because someone was acting up like that in their neighborhood, is going to look at him the same way that we look at Ryan.
But yet nobody looks at nobody looks at him like, people just hate his art or love his art because of what it is, rather than the things that he's done as well too. And he's done some shitty things,
for sure.
But nobody really does that separation the way they've done with Ryan Adams, the way they've done with, just blanked on that other name. Anyhow,
it happens.
There's plenty of artists who hate the artist, but define whether you can love the art regardless of the artist or not. So
and I feel bad about like certain people who dealt with people like your Harvey Weinsteins in the world. But am I going to write off all of the Weinstein Company's movies that I love? Probably not.
Yeah, it's hard to, because first of all, you probably don't know a lot of the movies that might have been that as well too, and that's also somebody acting in that might have given the performance of their career. Are you going to write off those people's performances because of the production company? Those are fine lines to cross, honestly, and they're gray areas, and gray areas are
throwing the baby out with the bathwater in a way.
Absolutely, and gray areas are, for lack of a better way to put it, in this day and age where everybody wants black and white, they want this or that. Gray area is almost a taboo area right now anymore, I think.
Yeah,
and there's an old live song. I think it was off of Throwing Copper, called "The Beauty of Gray." I'm going back to 90s music here but off of their first album, I want to say it was Throwing Copper, there's a song by Live called "The Beauty of Gray," and I really do believe that if everybody's willing to step into the gray as opposed to be in either the black or white camp, that a lot more can get accomplished in this world if we step into the gray as well too.
I think that's a good spot to be. And I even think, mentally, politically, I think that the middle is the place to be. And I said last night, Scott man got mad at me at the at the gig. We were talking about, I don't know, something came up, and I was like, I just randomly said, "Hey man, I'm a conservative libertarian. I'm right down the middle, basically. Like you can't put a like I take a little bit from both sides, And then he got mad at me because I said conservative, and he was like, "Something what it means." I was like, "You're thinking like full on, like that's not what I'm saying. That's not what." But I didn't. It's best to just not even,
Yes.
try to go into conversations about politics and stuff and explaining yourself. But even then. Right after that, we just went on having a conversation about something else, just like things should be.
And that's one good thing about Scott too, is he's very opinionated.
I love Scott,
but as long as you're not trying, no matter what your other opinion is, if you're not trying to force your opinion on him, he's cool with you.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly.
And Scott and I share a lot of similar opinions on things, and we differ on a few things too. And that's the beauty of the world, is the fact that I remember growing up when, people would vote for multiple people regardless of party, and now so many people are just voting party line, and it's just like,
that's so dumb. And the only thing that bothers me about that is that nobody really looks into who they're voting for actually stands for.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a general philosophy when it comes to voting, and its incumbency is corruption.
Oh yeah, well,
and so it's like, it's got to really be somebody that I really have no trust for. Like I've voted for people that voted against people that I've believed in because I felt they've been in office too long. Because once you're in too long, you're more apt to be
corrupted.
Yeah, corrupted. So I've voted against people I've believed in because it's like, by the end of this next term, they're just going to be puppets.
That same person that I don't want to vote for now.
Yeah, they're just going to be puppets. And I'm trying to keep my voting is really apolitical but political at the same time. It's my philosophy is if you've been there a while, you need to get out.
Oh yeah, I'm with that. I'm with that too. Like I just, like I said, I voted for candidates from both major parties or independents. I've all around, and I think that's smarter, man. Just because that makes you actually pay attention to what the person you're voting for says and believes in, and I believe that is necessary.
And I'll be the first to admit, like when it comes to kids, I lean far left. Working for Horry County Schools for 12 years and seeing just the differences in how the poorer kids were ready for school than the kids that came from houses with books, and stuff like that. Seeing those differences, I'm very far left for kids to get to the same level.
I agree.
And let's bring those kids without books. Let's get them into.
Let everybody start at the same.
Yeah, let's get them in as opposed to a K4. Let's get them into a K3 and get them some books. Let's get them some help reading. Let's get everybody so that by the time they're in first, second grade, they're all at least. And I realize there's always going to be some kids who are smarter, some kids that are better at hands-on stuff, some kids that are better at tests. I get all of that. But for everybody to at least have the same baseline kind of to start at by like the time they're in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, because we don't have that right now. And a lot of the education gap comes from that factor right now, which is why I do tend to lean pretty hard left for kids. When you're an adult, it's like if a lot of where you're at is because of your own choices.
Right.
Here's a little hand up, but it's like here's some help, but the kids, too many kids are punished for the sins of their parents right now.
Yes, and that is not good for our future as a country.
Because when the kids are punished for the sins of their parents, they're just going to repeat the sins of the parents.
Of course they are.
And that's when people talk about systemic racism, that's part of the problem, is the system of how the poor are pretty much marginalized in this system of the kids being punished for the sins of the parents. And when we talk about those systems, that's one of the systems that don't really get talked about is that how are the children why are the children treated this way? Because their parents are treated that way. And if we could find a way to separate the way we treat kids from the way we treat their parents, I think it would be a lot better for the future, honestly.
Agreed. And there's granted, there are some parents who just end up in those situations by mere happenstance, and it's no fault of their own, which I think absolutely. It's easy to tell which of those are which. Mm-hmm. So, but yes, the kids, they're going to be running our country eventually, and it doesn't seem like we're doing very much in the past. Like, I think there's been more prisons built than schools. I think I did some research on an episode I did about a year ago, and found that there are more prisons being built these days than there are schools, and that is just maddening.
There's denial, and I don't know the veracity of it. I've heard confirmation and denial of it, but there are reports that, and I'm not sure if it's true anymore, but there are reports that in the 90s and early 2000s, they were building prisons based on third grade reading rates.
Wow. That sounds insane, but it could be. That's true. Steve Blevins, Hank Williams said, "Mind your own business and you won't be minding mine." That's how he said it.
Absolutely.
Oh man, but I don't want to go too far down that road. I'll be getting upset and then here all heated and talking about how the government needs to step up the game, and I don't need to be doing that. Taxation is theft in here.
Honestly, as I said, I'm just my real concern's only ever for the kids more than more than adults.
That's our future.
Yeah, and it's going to maintain, and not just that, but it's the people I'm going to have to teach in a few years too.
So. Yeah, that's true. That's true. They're going to be coming to the good old coastals.
Yes, indeed. And I thank you for this water. So
you're welcome. Pound all of it if you need to. And if the restroom is the first door on the left, if you need that.
I've got an iron bladder, so we're
good. I hear you. Well, dude, as musicians, man, we can go 3 hours.
I've had to do it before. Indeed.
So, speaking of Hank Williams is my favorite songwriter. Who is yours?
It kind of depends on the day. If I'm listening to something that's like, oh, wow, that's absolutely amazing. Historically, I would have to say Robert Smith by The Cure, of The Cure, is the first one. He's the first one where I started really relating to the lyrics, where when growing up it would be here's a song that I like, but I just didn't know why I liked the song. But then once I started listening to The Cure, I really started feeling like, oh wow, I relate to this. And so that was like the initial person right there. And also a little bit of Jello from the Dead Kennedys.
These are names I'm not familiar with. I know the Cure, obviously.
Like the punk band, the Dead Kennedys.
Oh, yeah.
He, just the ability to channel that anger into something sarcastic and humorous all the time was very impressive to me. By the time I hit college, there is something, and I know there's a lot of people who hate his voice and don't necessarily listen to the band just because of the voice, which is sad because the band behind him is amazing and his lyrics are amazing. But Adam Duritz from Counting Crows is one of the most just amazing lyricists that I've ever seen, because he was one of those people who can just take what I was feeling at that time and just say, yeah, this is how you're feeling, and I'm going to word it better than you could ever even think about wording it.
Yeah.
And
he really is. He's a wizard with words.
He really, really is. And like August and along those lines, Disintegration from The Cure is my favorite album of all time, and August and Everything After is my second favorite album of all time. And so we're looking at not just like the songwriters, but they've also produced these major, amazing albums where the whole thing just spoke to me as well, too.
Yeah.
And so Adam Duritz is up there. Modern day, there's two people on my radar that just blow me away. And those are Jason Isbell and John Moreland.
My man. You just named my number one and number two living songwriters. I was just at Merle's Inlet Muscle, which, by the way, Merle's Inlet Muscle, if you guys are not familiar with that, get on that right now. I sent you a message, by the way. I was like, who is doing this? Because we got to get together. I don't even want to tell you what it is. I don't even want to tell you what it is. I just want you to go and find Merle's Inlet Muscle and just look at it. Just enjoy yourself. It's so good.
Okay.
It's so good. Anybody familiar with The Onion
Yes.
will enjoy Merle's Inlet Muscle. But yes, Jason Isbell and John Moreland. Jesus, man. And I found Jason Isbell through my buddy John Wesley Satterfield, who coincidentally is also a very good songwriter. And Jason, he showed me Cover Me Up. Back then, that was my introduction to Isbell. And, Outfit was actually my introduction to Jason Isbell. And then Cover Me Up was like, the one that sold me. Mm-hmm. But, man, Moreland opened for Isbell on that entire tour for the Southeastern tour, I think it was. And he did 3:59 a.m. And there was this, like, at the end of a Jason Isbell live show that I watched, they showed John Moreland do 3:59 a.m. and I was like, who the fuck is this? So this is the greatest songwriter that I've seen in a long time now.
Yeah, I've had a chance to see John Moreland play 4 times now.
God, lucky.
And one of them, the first time was the very first of those high water festivals down in Charleston. Yeah. And he was a second stage artist. And he came on between Shovels and Rope and the Avett Brothers.
What a lineup.
Yeah. And earlier in that day, I don't know if you've ever heard Aaron Lee Tajan before. He played that day too. And
Ready to Die.
Yeah. And live, they shred on the guitar. Like, you wouldn't expect it from the album.
Yeah.
But the way they shred live, like, it borderlined, for people who aren't, like, religious fans of music, it might have basically seemed like fretboard masturbation. But, but for those of us who, like, knew the songs, it's just like, it got close to that point, but it pulled back just in time,
Yeah.
and it was just like, wow, this dude can shred too. Damn. And
I saw him on that song on the Jam in the Van, and they were getting down pretty hard in there. But I'd imagine just to see it in front of a crowd would be a lot different.
Yeah, it was really, really amazing. And John Moreland played with John Calvin Abney 3 of those shows. It was him and John Calvin Abney playing lead guitar and keyboard for one of them, if I recall correctly, for a few songs too. And if you haven't gotten any of his albums are amazing.
I've got In the Throes over there.
Okay, like the John Calvin
John Calvi. I'm thinking of Moreland.
Yeah, John
Sorry.
Calvin Abbey. His album Coyote is absolutely amazing as well too, and he's basically not only John Moreland's right-hand man, but he's also a great songwriter in and of himself too.
I'd imagine that he would be hanging out with,
Yes.
you're only as good as the company you keep, and damn it, he's doing a good job.
Yes, absolutely. And not last summer, but the summer before, John Moreland played a sit-down show at Cat's Cradle.
Oh, man.
And then he did the Visualite Theater in Charlotte the next night. I went to both of them. I basically did my 2 days of deadheading John Moreland and followed him from city to city.
That's awesome, though.
And what was cool was because it was a sit-down show, I don't know if you remember Eugene Ray before he moved back to Austin. He was a musician here. He went up to the Charlotte show with me. And
I think I'm for Facebook friends, I think.
yes, probably. And we went to the Baxter Arcade. I don't know how familiar you are with Cat's Cradle as a venue.
Not.
Well, about a quarter mile away, there's a really cool arcade. No kids allowed in it except for Sunday family days. It's basically 25-cent arcade games that you can go play and drink beer or whatever while you're doing it.
I think I've heard of that. Maybe Jeremy and Corinne have told me about this place.
It's
maybe
possible. It's possible. It's a really cool place. So we so we realize, oh shit, it's time to go over to the show. So we get there. Doors are supposed to open at 7. We get there at like 6:45, thinking, oh, we're going to be way back in line, and we're like the third ones in line, and like the show wasn't till 8 though, and
yeah.
But we get in, and this is a seated show with no specific seats. It's general admission seated. So
that's cool.
Yeah, so we get in, and there's folding chairs right up at the front to the left. So you're not right there with the monitor, so you can't see anything. And we're just there, and it's just like absolutely amazing. We got the chance out back afterwards to talk to John Moreland for about 3 or 4 minutes.
How is he?
Very
Is he like us?
Introverted at the end of the show. You could tell he was a little bit uncomfortable. We probably would have wanted to talk longer, but we could realize that he's
the real deal.
Yeah, he was done. So,
yeah.
so we kind of we let him be him and skedaddle, even though we wanted to talk a lot more. But we also understand the process of after
100%.
the show.
Me and Cameron Nesbitt were talking one night about Ray LaMontagne, and like Cam asked, he was like, dude, Ray, he asked somebody who was with Ray's group, like, hey man, he's like my hero. Can I when would there be a good time to try to say something to him or speak to him? And the guy was like, there isn't a good time. There isn't a good time. And I'm like, that it sucks that with that, what does Spider-Man say? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
With this art and gift that we've been given, we're also given this, in most cases, crippling anxiety and just horrible social anxiety and things like that.
Yeah, it's I don't know too many songwriters who don't have one of the following: generalized anxiety disorder, hypomania, clinical depression, or low-level schizophrenia, for lack of a better way to put it.
Right.
Undiagnosed low-level schizophrenia.
Bro. All 4.
I had have a friend who's an artist who used to have a gallery in Conway, but left after the economic collapse because, once the economy collapses, the first thing people stop buying is art.
Oh, yeah.
And he left and went back to Port Charlotte, Florida. And he said to me at one point, the only difference between an artist and a schizophrenic is a medium. And I know that's a little bit hyperbolic, but at the same time, there's an underpinning truth to that, is the artist has a way to get that out, and the schizophrenic has no medium.
Doesn't know, yeah.
And so...
That's true, man. Like, I'll let those crazy thoughts, if you let those crazy thoughts come out in your music and you, like, write those crazy things... Instead of you have to put them somewhere, and the music is life. Music is life, whether or not they think it is or not. Like, there's life in music. So
Yes.
if you can give that thing that you might feel is just a crazy thing life within a song, then it doesn't live within you anymore.
Yes. The crazier thoughts actually go out in poetry for me, believe it or not.
I hear you.
The things that nobody ever really sees too much. Like every now and again, I'll bust out some poetry, like at a writers group or something like that. But the darker stuff, the more like, wow, that's a weird thought stuff, usually ends up in poetry. And sometimes it's a good way to, like, usually playing live is how I get rid of my mania. Mine is more hypomania than anything else.
Yeah.
I used to think it was just depression until I realized the patterns of, okay, before I got depressed, I was in 3 months of absolutely reckless behavior where I didn't give a damn about anything, spending everything, wanting to be the center of attention. And yeah, that's textbook hypomania right there. But I only, in the 90s, they didn't really care about mania. They just cared about the depression and and put you on Zoloft, which,
Thankfully, I made it out without taking any of those things.
Honestly, after about 3 months, I had to get off Zoloft because I would rather feel everything than feel nothing. So
Yeah, right.
Like, if you're feeling nothing, you can't be a writer. Honestly, you can't. There's nothing to get out if you're not feeling anything.
Right.
And so, yeah, and being able to put it down and get it out. Playing live takes care of the mania, and honestly, the darker stuff usually comes out in poetry. Some of it comes out in song. But I've got a lot of songs that nobody's going to ever hear except myself.
I've got a few like that, but I feel like all of my writing happens as poetry to start with. Mm-hmm. It all begins as poetry. And some stay that forever, and because I don't need to put a song to it. But if I realize, like, halfway through a poem, oh, this is a song, then I'll finish the song, and then I'm like, then I'm gonna get my guitar, and then I'm gonna read through this and see how it sounds, and they usually let them play themselves. And I've said that to several people on the podcast before, and I don't know if I've heard anybody else who does that, who writes the words first.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I wish there was a pattern for what I do. Honestly, I think if there's one underlying thing, there's usually some sort of cadence. Whether I'm playing the guitar and noodling about and a cadence pops out, or whether I'm writing and then there's some sort of some sort of cadence there. I think for me, it goes back to a cadence, but where that cadence comes from first is variable. So sometimes it is. I've started with the words, and then I pick up on the cadence, and I'm like, okay, what can I, what kind of music and strum pattern can go with this?
Yeah.
And other times it's like, oh wow, this is a cool pattern. What can I do lyrically with this? But I think for me, it all goes back to that initial cadence of dun, 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 dun. And that's actually for me. Playing in most of my songs in an open tuning and going very rhythmic with it is the most important thing, is that cadence, honestly, because, and I don't want to sound like, where's this guy coming from? But I was forced to play in an open tuning because of actually a finger accident. And the one thing that I realized was that playing in an open tuning completely changed the way I played rhythm. And so I feel like
I've never tried that.
I feel like I've got a highly different rhythm pattern than almost everybody I know because of the open tuning. And and there's people who have great rhythm patterns, and I'm not even sure whether mine's great. I just know it's different. And
which is great in itself.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that helps me stand out. Is that great, or is that just some hack who just got lucky? maybe both.
Exactly.
Maybe both. But I really feel like because of the fact that I play in those open tunings and the rhythm is important to the way that I play, that it's really forced the cadence as like the main impetus of the song that I'm doing.
Now, how long have you been doing the open tuning?
It started in 1998. I was working door at a bar, and I had held open like this big heavy door for a girl walking out, and I really wasn't paying attention. And when it closed, I cut off this fingertip in the doorway right there, and it didn't take the nail. This was a Friday night. I didn't have a show till the next Wednesday, and at that point in time, I was still like, if I don't get that $75, I'm not eating this week. You know, that sort of stuff. I mean, early, I was at that point like 25, 26. 26 years old. And, mid-20s as a musician. You still haven't completely found exactly what it is that's your style and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. And so I was in a splint with like all that silver nitrate to get the bleeding to stop and stuff like that. So, but I was in a splint, and this was before the internet. Well, the internet was kind of there in '98.
Yeah.
But I figured out, like by Monday, that there was something called open D tuning, and
Dadgad.
Yeah, actually, it's DAD F sharp AD. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So when you strum down, it's just a perfect D chord. And what's cool about that one, you can knock that F sharp up to a G, get Dagad. You can knock that F sharp down to an F, get open D minor, and you can take that second C, second D and DAD, knock that down to a C, and get a open D seventh as well too. So you've got a lot of different.
That's tunings. Crazy to me, because I play half step, but outside of that and drop D, like I'm pretty good at. I'm pretty good at getting the, when the G chord on the drop D, the long G chord. Mm-hmm. Like I've really liked doing that as of late because I've been. Okay, have you listened to any Joe Pug?
A little bit. I actually listened to his podcast though as well too.
What? He has a podcast?
He has a songwriters podcast.
This chair, I hope you guys hear this chair moaning under the weight of me, by the way. Now I'm about to just go on the floor with it. Joe Pug has a songwriters podcast.
Yeah.
How do I not know this?
I know I have it on my Outcast thing on my iPad at home.
Outcast has a podcast.
No. Outcast, Outcast is a
podcasting network.
A podcast app for iTunes. It's not on Android, and I've got. Let me see if I've got it on this particular one, but I have it on my iPad stuff. But let's see.
But yeah, Joe Pug, he does a lot of his stuff is in drop D, and just that like him 101. I've been playing a lot lately. Has that nice little drop D drone, and I just got my guitar back from Ed Dennis a couple of days ago. Or a couple of weeks ago, actually, and I didn't have a low E, but now I've got like all low E. Nice. So when I hit it, it sounds like Neil Young, where that string is like 30% louder than each other string, and it's just
it's the Working Songwriter Podcast.
Oh man, I'm about to subscribe right now. I'm about to sub to that right now. I'm in the middle of a podcast. I'm going to subscribe to one.
Yeah, the last 4 people that he's had on it is Langhorne Slim, Citizen Cope, Amanda Palmer, and Carmel Bromel of My Morning Jacket. He's got Craig Finn on there, which is one of my favorite episodes from...
Subscribed. Man. But yeah, like, I've been listening to a lot of him lately. Mm-hmm. Like, me and Seth Funderburk went down. Me and Seth and Dana went down to Charleston to see Beck. And Ghost of a Saber-Toothed Tiger opened for him. That is Sean Lennon.
Okay.
Sean Lennon's band. And we didn't know who the opening act was because it was unannounced.
Uh-huh.
And we get there, and like, there's John Lennon on stage because he looks just like him. And I was like, the Beatles are my favorite band. There's the son of a Beatle. Nice. Right here, like 40 yards away from me. There he is. That blew my mind.
That's pretty cool.
On the way back home, Seth Funderburk played me "I Do My Father's Drugs" by Joe Pug, and I was like, wow, this guy is like Bob Dylan, except he's in key. And don't get me wrong, I love Bobby D, but I guess I just didn't go far enough down that road.
Yeah.
It just seemed to me like, and folks who are huge Dylan fans, like nothing against you or Dylan at all, but I was always more of a Townes Van Zandt guy.
I love me some Townes. My favorite Bob Dylan period is that period where he really was in between blues, electric, and folk, like that. Like that Desolation Row, Visions of Johanna, where he was doing those 7-minute songs that just, it's like, what the hell is this guy saying? And it's all beautiful. Like, that's my favorite. Like, don't get me wrong, I like stuff like Blowing in the Wind and some of his later blues stuff.
Highway 61 wasn't bad.
Yeah, but like Blonde on Blonde is probably my favorite of the Dylan albums, and there's a really, really cool cover album or tribute album that is a bunch of blues players and other called Blues on Blonde, and it's a really cool. It's a really, really cool tribute, and there's part of me that likes some of those songs even better than the original. Actually,
I've said it for a long time, and I don't know if I've ever heard it before. I think I'm the only one that's ever said it, but I'll say, all right, well, here's a Bob Dylan song, because let's be honest, what's better than a Bob Dylan song played by somebody else?
Yeah,
I mean, dude, those new Basement tapes, dude.
And the Turtles got a couple hits based off of Bob Dylan songs. The Byrds got a couple of hits based off of from Bob Dylan songs.
We're not gonna mention Darius Rucker. Have you ever played that song ever? Outside of when it was Old Crow, when it was cool.
There was a time when it was Old Crow before anybody had ever heard of it, and
living room days. I remember those.
And then once, and this is gonna sound bad, but then once once the old timers who only play what's popular started playing it, I'm like, I'm done with it, you know.
Right.
And that was even before Darius Rucker, honestly. That was about a year before Darius Rucker, where it's just like, it's like the casual people who really aren't making a living at music are playing it. And like, oh, here we are at this like open mic, and it's like I have a full-time day job where I make $300,000 a year, and you should come see my guitar collection. Once those people started playing it, I'm like, oh, I'm fucking done. So
yeah, man, dude, right here, I'm same here, man. But I tell people when they ask for that song, because we play at the places that were requested a lot. When they ask for that song, I'll be like, listen, I know it. I've retired it. Like, we have retired that song. Like, because I played that song long before Darius Rucker ever did. And like, I remember when I first moved here in 2006, when I met you at I met you before I'd actually moved here.
At the living room.
At the living room. And that was because I was just going around, I was pushing that little solo album that I had back then, the acoustic B-side. And Miss Kathy was the first person to give me a gig for $50 playing on weekend night at the living room. And I also played this little joint called the Coffee Cabana. Do you remember that in Surfside? It was a little computer cafe.
I do. I'd forgotten all about that place.
Right.
Wow.
I know. It was in that little strip mall there where the Subway is. And it was like a little computer cafe. I played one gig there for $50. And that was it. But I did those 2 gigs, and then I started going to the open mic over a living room that you were hosting. And that was back in the time when everybody was playing, like Edwin McCain was the big deal, and Wagon Wheel was just then hitting, like
Yes.
it was just then coming out pretty hard. And Dispatch was doing big things back then. Like that was before they had defiled themselves. I'll say it. I'll say it. You did. You let me down, Dispatch.
The gauntlet's been thrown.
I'll say it.
Yeah, when it comes to that song, actually, I don't say that it's been retired. I actually, for a lot of songs like that, I'm like, my niche is actually elsewhere, and there are a lot of people that can do that song a lot better than I can, so I don't.
Okay, that's a nice way of saying no.
Yeah, it's the nicest way that I can to say no without saying, I don't see $100 in my tip jar, so no.
Right. I'll say that we try to be the band that plays the things that not every other band down here does. Because if we did the same thing everybody else does, then what the hell would you need us for?
Yeah.
And plus, I don't want to give you guys a song right now that you can hear on the radio on the way home. And
Yes,
we try to, and like we'll do popular songs, but they're B-siders. You know, like we'll do a few good bands and stuff like that. But we like to do like popular bands, not so popular songs that are better than their popular songs.
Yes.
In my opinion, like we do Fleetwood Mac, but instead of doing like Go Your Own Way, and I mean, we will do Dreams, we'll do like Rhiannon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, like things that nobody does that. Nobody's doing Rhiannon around here.
no, honestly, along those lines, I'm doing. And a lot of these, again, are interpretations, but I've got an interpretation of Mr. Brightside that nobody is doing. I'm playing Shout right now at shows. By
Really?
Tears for Fears.
Scott Mann says Dabrowski wants the death penalty for playing it.
Nice.
But dude, Shout is that whole album, man. That whole
Songs
album
from the
is
Big
so,
Chair? It was one of those seminal 1980s albums that...
I've got that one over there. I got a bunch of records over there, man.
Very, very nice. Yeah, so I'm doing songs like that. A couple shows back, there was a few Counting Crows fans, and as opposed to doing something like Round Here or Mr. Jones, I did Anna Begins, and I don't know if you're familiar with August and Everything After
I'm
That
not.
Deep, but it's just this gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous song. And I'm not saying it's better than or worse than, because that's just subjective to every individual.
Opinion.
But for me, that song hit more emotions than almost anything else on that album. And so I love playing that song, and I'll do that with almost sing it with the emotion as if I wrote it, myself.
Right.
And so I really like songs that I can actually, when I cover them, that I can pull out those sorts of emotions as well too. It's why if I'm doing a Dave Matthews song, I'm more likely to do something like Typical Situation than
Oh man, so good.
than maybe something that might be like I can do Crash just fine.
Yeah.
And I've done it when asked for. But I much prefer doing a song like Typical Situation where the fans are like who like Dave Matthews like, ooh, nice, dude.
Right.
So
we started. I try to pull in two-step. I really like doing two-step, and we've been doing Ants Marching and Jimmy Thing as of late. But we also did 41 for a really long time. We did a lot of Dave.
Nice.
I was very, very influenced by Dave for the majority of my guitar playing, because I've always been a predominantly acoustic player.
Yes.
Which, by the way, this week I'm doing some American Sound gigs. By the way, you can catch Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week the American Sound, ladies and gentlemen, with the electric guitar.
nice. Whereabouts?
I'll be Thursday. I will be at Bubba's Love Shack here in Merle's Inlet. Friday, I'll be at Garden City Pier, and then Saturday we are at Liberty at Broadway,
What time is that?
6 to 9. at Liberty on Broadway. But yeah, the electric, but still,
Yes.
shameless plug. Where are you at this week? Since we're on it,
Wednesday, I'm actually at Fresh Brewed Coffee House. Every now and again, I like to jump on a show with some of the 20-year-old bands that are playing with, just because it's a good way to keep in touch with what's going on with the young musicians in town, and kind of see it, because there's a lot of those as well. A lot of those kids that might want to get a shot at like an acoustic show or something like that as well too. And I'm more than happy, like, for an Atlas Tap House show or an Island Bar show. Island Bar once you turn 21 to it's like, hey, you want to jump on for a 45-minute acoustic set, and so I'm there Wednesday. There's a couple of out of town bands. I'm also with Monochopsis. I don't know if you've ever heard them play. I've done a show with them and Lawrence LaRusso, AJ and Eddie's new band.
Yeah, I know Jamie really well.
Yeah, so Jamie's new band as well too. So yeah, I've done a couple shows with them as well, and I know they're going to be doing their first like acoustic size set where they've done more electric everything beforehand. So I'm there on Wednesday. Friday, I'm at Atlas Tap House. Saturday, I'm at Island Bar Surfside for an acoustics showcase. And what's cool about that is I've got my friend George Banda coming into town from Charlotte for those two shows. He's an amazing guitarist and a great songwriter as well too. And he's one of the hosts of the Evening Muse open mic in Charlotte as well too.
That's pretty cool.
So if you've ever been to Charlotte on a Monday night for the Evening Muse, is such a cool open mic because it's like it's $3 to get in. It's chairs all facing the stage. It's a listening room open mic that sells beer.
What more do you need?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's well run. And what's cool is there's usually like 20 people on the list or so. But if you've come from X far away, they're going to put you up near the front of the list because you've traveled that far.
That's nice.
It really, really is. The first people they put on the list is always like, okay, are you in high school and have to get out of here soon? That sort of thing. But beyond that, like, I've always been, the times I've gone up, I've been 4th, 5th, 6th on the list. And you only really get to do 2 songs there because it is that much of a crowded list.
Yeah.
But it's a really, really great place to play as well, too. So it's one of the cooler regional open mics. For some reason, there's a lot of good Monday open mics, regionally speaking. Eddie's Attic up in Decatur, Georgia, has an amazing Monday night open mic where you sign up and they actually give the performers a spaghetti dinner beforehand.
That's pretty neat.
It really is.
Ain't nothing wrong with spaghetti. Scott Mann says, and you could teach them to limit their douchiness at a young age when they need all that instruction. Since I see him in here, Smitty has got a new art page. Go subscribe to J. Paul Smith's art page there, ladies and gentlemen. He's in the chat right now.
And the roadhouse he painted while at Waccamaw Getaway Festival, that was absolutely an amazing painting.
Dude, he's killing it. He's doing so good.
He absolutely is. Just great stuff.
We're all so proud of you.
Yeah, he's just amazing stuff.
And of course, Rick, I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate you, friend. No, that's a really cool way to do it. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Not a problem.
I know you have you posted on social media your gigs for the week.
Yes.
Or the month, maybe?
Yes. Till the end of the month, just because I hadn't created the event pages yet, and I still wanted the people to know where I am. So that was really more that. And I've been filling in occasionally on Monday nights here for Borgata holds a really cool open mic on Monday nights as well too. And Sean Brown runs those most of the year, but during summer he's got a lot of other gigs, so he occasionally needs people to fill in, and I've filled in quite a few times, and I really, really like the staff there. I mean, the staff will come up, like they've got a cajon, and the staff will come up and just start playing cajon with you, and that drives
me crazy.
Here's the thing. If I don't know the people, it drives me crazy. But if I know the people and know that they're okay, then I've got no problems with it. If I don't know the people, it's just like, oh, somehow you found a way to manage to do the shakers on the 1 and the 3. I don't understand how, but
but see, I am so, and Smitty will vouch for it in the chat right now, dude. I am just so quick to be like, no, please stop that.
At an open mic, it's different than a real show, though, too.
Yeah.
Where, and honestly, if it wasn't the staff or like some musicians who I know also play drums have done it as well too.
Yeah.
Those musicians I'm totally cool with. An open mic is fine. A real show, if somebody starts to come up and it's like, no, this is my show. You're not getting paid for this. I am.
Right.
This is
not what we're doing.
Yeah,
here.
This is my reputation. This is my show. Open mic, a lot. It's to me, an open mic is just a completely different beast, honestly.
Right.
At the living room, I used to hand out egg shakers, so to make the audience feel more involved. So, because the cool thing about those open mics is there were people, just audience people, who were just there for the show.
Yeah.
And they weren't even signed up on the list. They were just there. So just any way to make them feel more a part of the show. For an open mic, that's going to bring people back for an open mic.
For sure.
But if it's a paid show for myself, it's like, no, I don't care if you claim you can sing like Stevie Nicks. No.
I don't care. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And I'll have it too, like where a really pretty girl will come up and be like, it's my friend's birthday, and we really want to like sing a song for her. Can you play? And nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yep. Honestly, my usual reaction if somebody says, "Hey, can I come up and play your guitar and sing during your set break?" I'm like, "Why don't you go ask the owner?"
Yeah.
And
right. Rick Brian has a YouTube channel that you can find through my page is Follow My Friends on my YouTube channel. Brian has a page there that you can follow him.
I need to update that so hard.
Well, Rick here is asking where we can support you, where you can like find your.
My webpage, actually, brian-roessler.com, has a lot of stuff. And even when I released my album last summer, there's actually a secret EP on my webpage. Eugene Ray and I did, for the sake of saving money, we booked a weekend at a recording studio ourselves. So that way, he could do an acoustic EP, I could do an acoustic EP.
Yeah.
One day we had extra time, and we just sat on either side of an omnidirectional microphone and just did a song swap. And I pulled 4 songs out of that. And there's a secret EP on my webpage right there on the music page as well, too. So a few people have gotten to hear that. And that includes, some songs that I don't play that often. One's called Down, 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 which is about like kind of touring life on the road.
Yeah.
One is the one that, other than the Snack Cake song, the one people seem to ask for the most, which is the song about Helen Keller. Yeah, I have a song about Helen Keller.
Hold on. You have a song about snack cakes and a song about Helen Keller.
Yeah. Like the Little Debbie song, everybody knows. But the song about... We've done songwriter circles in this area where we get a topic and we have a month to write a song on the topic. Then we get together, play our songs, have a few drinks or some food or whatever, just chill out for a while, and then decide on the next month's topic. Well, one month, this is when the Sound Hole was still open, if that tells you anything.
I remember the name.
Where Atlas Tap House is now.
I've never been to Atlas.
Wow. Some Friday night, if you ever don't have a show,
yeah,
and you want to kind of play a lot more original stuff that you've written, I'll more than happily put you on an Atlas show with me, honestly. It's the coolest little place. The food's great. The staff loves music.
That's good.
The staff is really, really amazing there. And they're pretty much cool with music of any kind, honestly. as long as they favor the more original stuff.
Yeah.
Or if it's covers, the more interpretive stuff.
For sure.
They don't mind a cover show, but if it sounds like the original, they're like, whatever, dude. So,
yeah.
I mean, the people that play there the most, oh, bless you.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Sorry.
Or myself, Perlino, and Harper Vibely. We're the ones that play there the most, honestly. And Harper Vibely being Zach and Liz from Oracle Blue. And we're the ones that tend to play there the absolute most. The Apron Strings did for a while, but they're so busy elsewhere right now that they haven't.
Very proud of them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I forget where I was going before I went on my Atlas Tap House tangent.
You were talking about the sound hole?
Oh, yeah, that's right. And so we let the people who had drank the most that night choose the topic because they had a bar tab of close to $130 worth of whiskey that night. And so in deference to that, we let them choose the topic. And they chose the topic of come up with a theme song to an imaginary television show. Yeah, and usually when I come up with a topic, I try to make it somewhat broad where you can have multiple interpretations of it. There's no interpreting that except for coming up with the theme song for an imaginary television show. And 3 weeks into it, I had come up with some great television show names, but I had no songs to go with it. I mean, I had like Law and Hoarders. I'm like, that sounds like a fun show. Sesame Streetwalkers. I'm like, that could go a lot of different ways. You could either look at that as like a cops kind of angle or a yeah. And so and then just I don't know what happened. One night I'm just sitting there, and I was actually just noodling with the guitar and kind of doing and I was doing a slow noodle and kind of doing more of one of those Johnny Cash, like talking kind of noodles.
Yeah.
You know? And all of a sudden I sped it up and out popped this song for that thing. And it was called In the Kitchen with Helen Keller. And so that's the name, that was the imaginary television show.
That's pretty good.
And so, yeah, for some reason that song and a song about Little Debbie snack cakes are the ones that I get the most requests for. And I've written so many serious songs in my life. And the ones I get the requests for is like, do the one that'll make me laugh. And I do appreciate it. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely appreciate it. But at the same time, it's like, you don't want to hear the one that'll crush your heart. You know?
the one that it pained me to write.
Yeah. You don't want to hear the one where I had this existential experience about life, you know?
I hear you, Scott. I'm down with that. Actually, whenever I get, Scott says that it's worth it to stop by the Atlas and leave my usual perimeter, which is true. I never do that. I'm so bad about like just trying to stay home and stay into my usual circle where I usually go because I'm comfortable there and just anxiety and it's peaked now at this point in my life, and could be what we were talking about before we got started, but who knows. The truth of the matter is that when I get done after this single that I've released, I'm going to release another single over the next few days, and then another single. I'm going to do 3 singles, and then I'm going to release an album, and I want to do an album release show at a place where I don't play.
I could set it up at Atlas, or no. If you live down here, there's a great venue up in Charlotte, and I know Charlotte, what? But there's a great venue up in Charlotte, but I know it's next to impossible to get many people from the south end to Little River, let alone 15 miles past Little River. But yeah, there's a great listening room. That is just, it's an amazing little listening room in Charlotte, but it's hard to get people to Charlotte. Be far easier to get people to someplace like Atlas Tap House But if you wanted to do a release thing there, I would be more than happy to set that up.
I want to do something. I just want to play, like, do an album release somewhere where I don't usually play. And Yeah, I want to just because I know that this will be a different show than anything else that I do, so I want to reserve what I usually do for the places where I usually do it. Since this will be completely out of the ordinary for my usual performances, I want to do it in a place that is completely out of the ordinary.
Absolutely. I've got a really cool idea for the next time I do a big album release. Like the last one I did, I actually did, when I released that EP, I released it at the state park.
Yeah.
And I got a pavilion at the state park.
That was a neat idea, man.
And I'm like, oh, it's mid-June. It shouldn't be hot yet. That was the time last June where we had like the heat index of 115 was the day of the release, and we're outside in a pavilion. I know that kept like, honestly, if it wasn't my own show, I probably wouldn't have gone out of the house that day.
Yeah.
And I know that's the case for a lot of people. I was glad that there were 30 people that showed up, honestly, that day. Through the course
That's
of the day.
That's a good crowd, man,
yeah,
for something like that around here.
Yeah, so we had hot dogs. It was like
I think Jen and Jeff did this podcast that morning before that.
It could very well be, yeah,
because they were going there, and I can't remember. I think I had a gig pop up that night or something like that. I can't remember.
But the heat of that, I know, restricted the numbers. But I've got an idea for another album release not for an EP. It's going to have to be a big album. And maybe see if there's somebody who's going to be releasing an album at a similar time to kind of do like a dual album release.
Yeah.
But along, like I know down in Socastee and I think somewhere in Conway as well too, there are some, like you can go on like a riverboat, like one of those boats
that's nice.
Like rent the whole thing and then sell tickets for that and set up and do like a 3-hour thing going up and down the Waccamaw and release the album there.
That would be pretty neat.
And nobody's done anything like that. I want it to be like an event rather than just a show. Don't get me wrong, I want it to be a show too, but
right.
I want everything surrounding it to be the event too. Like
for sure.
Like, wow, do you remember that night? It's like, yeah, the music was great and everything else was great too. So
yeah, well, that's what I said about weddings for the longest time. Like, weddings are not about the ceremony at all.
No.
It's all about the food you serve and the band that you have.
Yeah.
And the party afterwards. Like, nobody's going to talk about how the service went.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to talk about everything else. Like, what food was there? What entertainment was there? How much fun everybody had.
Yeah, the only part of the service anybody ever mentions was, oh, the bride was beautiful.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, and basically, we're the bride. We're the bride in this situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott says, fuck them. Play back to better.
Yeah, like I know Shauna and I, we got married at the train depot, and we got married on the back deck. And instead of like the loading dock on the back of the train depot, and for her walk down song, I actually played "By My Side" by Ben Harper.
Aw.
Which is an amazing song. And so she walked down to that. And then when the ceremony was over, we opened the doors, we took the chairs in, and boom, there was the reception. So
Train Depot is a pretty magical spot.
It really, really is.
I got to open for Matt Heck when he came through.
Very cool.
He it's a funny story about this. I don't mean to cut your story off.
Not at all.
It's a good story. But somebody said, "What's on the back of your what's on the back of your guitar?" And he flipped his guitar up, and in tape it said "fuck Trump." And like half of the room got up and walked out. Like, it was bad, man. And I was like, man, he I guess that's a lesson that he will be like, man, maybe I'll play a different guitar the next time I come to the Deep South. And I mean, not like I disagree with him or agree with him at all.
Yeah,
but
everybody has the right to their statement.
Yeah, everybody has the right to say what they want to say, but I don't know. It was kind of funny that like somebody in the crowd was like, "Would you rather had Hillary?" And then just got up and walked out. Sorry, Matt. I know he will never hear this. But yeah, that's my funny Train Depot story. But no, that's awesome. But just to have just open the doors, go right into a reception in a historical spot, man. Yeah. That's history, man.
And what was cool about that was my MacBook was the DJ, and I also had it set up because I had a lot of musician friends there. That I'm like, hey, if y'all want to do kind of, after the first dance, after all after all of the formality stuff and
Yeah.
and the traditional stuff is done, if anybody wants to go up and play some songs, that's cool. Also, because I had done a show or two with him before, David Cheney was there in his full Elvis regalia and did a half hour of Elvis songs too.
That's pretty neat.
So it really was, and we since it was early September and we didn't want to go full formal, we did more of this kind of semi rockabilly theme where like all of the groomsmen wore the formal bowling shirts and stuff like that.
Sure.
And yeah, and we had, I don't know if you remember Todd Roth, my buddy Todd.
I've heard the name.
He moved to Austin about 4 or 5 years ago. Great blues player. He had a hookup that out in the front of the train depot, we had like this beautiful, some kind of 1950s classic red car, and we all took our picture in front of it too. And it was just really, really, it had that kind of old-timey feel, like rockabilly feel to it.
Is that where all of the profile pictures that I've seen came from?
Possibly.
Did
Like
Jeff
older
and
ones.
Jen Thomas
No,
do a shoot with that car?
I'm not sure.
I've seen them do pictures. I've seen
Because-
their pictures before with a car. Like
Yeah,
a classic.
because Todd borrowed it from somebody, so it's totally possible that they have the same connections.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like this red. It wasn't a '57 Chevy, but it was. It
Yeah.
was still a pretty sweet car, honestly. And yeah, so we did that, and what was nice about that too was we did everything that possibly that we could local. Like I live in Conway, so we had the Trestle do the catering, and
Yeah.
they have a bakery, so we had them do the catering and the cake. There's a place in Conway called Bodega that's not there anymore, but we bought all of the wine from there. We got all of the tables and like the bar itself from Conway Rental, and then we got all of the beer for the event from Greens. So we bought everything that we could local, just because. Yeah, just because, honestly.
Just because, and I will say that you are definitely one of the faces at the forefront of supporting local businesses and artists and musicians, and and Scott Mann is one of the other faces that is at the forefront of, like, supporting local businesses and local companies and local people.
I mean, the fact of the matter is when I spend something in Conway, somebody in Conway is going to turn back and spend that money in Conway again, hopefully.
Right.
And it keeps the money here as opposed to shipping our money off to some corporate office in some big city that we don't even know about.
Right.
Are there times when it's like, yeah, I can't afford this here today, and I've got to go, big box like Target or something like that? It happens.
Yeah.
But if there are chances where, like I played the Sunday Surfside Serenades 2 days ago, and
Does Glenn still do that?
he does.
I love old Hound Dog,
Yeah.
man. He's a cool dude.
He's somebody you should have on this podcast.
He's gonna be he's gonna be on for sure.
And around Christmas time too, speaking of somebody who keeps things local, he actually does a food drive and dresses up like Santa Claus and plays songs in places for this food drive too.
That's so awesome, man.
It really is.
His CD is hilarious.
Yes,
It's so good.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's got a big old beard now, and he's out of everybody I know, he's one of probably the most genuinely appreciative of everything in his life people. Like he's like everything that he has. Like you do the slightest little thing that you think no big deal, he's thanking you for it. Where I try to be appreciative, but I never hit that kind of level.
Yeah.
And it's just like his level of appreciation is appreciation I aspire to, honestly.
And he's so good about like recording every time. He always brings a camera to a gig, and he's always like posting videos afterwards. That's so nice of him.
It really, really is. He's just good people. And this is the 11th year that he's been running those Sunday Surfside Serenades, where he's been setting up the PA. He's been tearing down the PA. He's been booking the acts.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, guys, but really is.
Yes.
That's a lot.
And in the summertime heat as well too. And like he's the one that's set it up with
Scott knows,
with Surfside City Council, and and this town of Surfside's been wonderful with that too. They've given him pretty much everything that he's asked for that they can afford.
Right.
They actually gave him not gave him, but also Surfside has like a Keep Surfside Beautiful committee or something like that now, and they've been adding some extra touches to these things as well. And like this past one, Benjamin's Bakery was there selling bread, so I bought some bread and some everything but the bagel seasoning while I was there too, because there's a local business that way back when was the very first open mic that I went to.
Really?
When I started getting back into it. My first year here, there was a place called Friends up by Bimini's up near Lake Arrowhead where, I don't know if you know Nancy Joyner.
I've seen the name.
She ran an open mic up there my first year. And for that first year, I went to that. And then the next year and a half, 2 years, they were promising me this great promotion at Horry County Schools. So I'm like, I'm going to work to make more money. And then I didn't get the promotion, and it's like, fuck you, I'm going back to music. So,
the obvious decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And but when I started going back, that was the first open mic that I went to, and that's where I met Hound Dog, and that's where I met Scott Mann, and that's where I met Todd Roth, and that's where I met a ton of these other people that became that first music group that I got to know in this town. Yeah. So
that's a hell of a group to meet to start off with.
It really, really is. And it was just, so there's a little soft spot in my heart for Benjamin's Bagels. And I know they do a Tuesday night open mic right now, but it starts at 6, and I'm like,
do they really? I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just not in the I used to host open mic, but late night open mics. It was for this thing called Supplied Sounds was what it was called back in the day. And we did an open mic. We did one at the Big Ass Sandwich Company. You remember that down here? Which I miss that restaurant so much. I love that place. Y'all, they had these giant pita rolls. And they would put all of your sandwich stuff in there and stuff it with slaw and French fries and
Pittsburgh style.
Yeah, nice. Everything in the sandwich. And then you'd have slaw, French fries, and a bed of that, and then just all of your sandwich fixings on top, wrapped up in one giant. Dude, it was so good.
Nice. So that's a pita version of a Permane Brothers sandwich in Pittsburgh, then. Nice.
Right, dude, it was so good. But yeah, we did an open mic there, and then we did one at Sun Up and Sundown and Surfside.
Okay, yeah.
But those were all late night things, and it was $50, getting paid $50 for an open mic.
Basically, you're getting paid to set up and tear down your PA.
Yes, and if nobody shows up, you're getting $50 to play for 4 hours or whatever until somebody else shows up, which was the case a lot of the time. But once I started doing that, I was realizing, okay, this is sort of the thing that I'm going to be doing. I don't really care much about. I don't really care much about anything else. I just don't care about work. I don't care. I'm not good at anything else. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to suffer for a little while, and I'm just going to struggle for as long as I need to until this thing is now what it is now. But I mean, this was 11 years ago when I was doing that stuff, and just deciding, okay, well, I guess I'm going to try to do this now.
I'm a big believer in the open mic, but there's a few things that are tough about them. First of all, it's tough in a bar.
Yeah.
Some bars you can actually do it, but there has to be that specific commitment from the establishment itself to let it play out. A legitimate open mic takes about 4 to 6 months to actually establish itself.
Sure.
And most bars are going to cancel it in 4 to 6 weeks if it's not doing what
Right.
it wants. But so they don't give it that time to really establish itself. One of the cool things about the living room is I started that because Doug Fankhauser used to run that every other week. And then he had a gig during the summertime, and so I ran it every other week in the summertime. And then when he came back, I said, look, I've got my crowd and my friends here. You've got your crowd and your friends here. Let's talk to Diane and see if she would be willing to still change it to every week as opposed to every other week, only Doug hosts 1 week, I host the next. Doug hosts 1 week, I host the next, to the point where my crowd and his crowd would start intermingling, and it would just become one bigger open mic.
Right.
And that's what happened, and that's what made the living room so very good. But it took, once we went to that model, it took about 3 months for that to happen, honestly. Where it became, here's my open mic, here's Doug's open mic, to here's the living room open mic.
Right.
And once that did happen, it became absolutely magical. It really, really did.
That was good, man. And that piano.
Oh, the baby grand, yes. Yeah. And when I ran Fresh Brewed, when we started that from scratch in 2009, I told Kevin, it's going to be a little lean to begin with, but give it time and it will get a reputation and it will turn into something good. And those first ones, like I would actually invite like one person to say, hey, you're going to be our featured artist today. And as opposed to like 4 or 5 songs, we're going to give you 45 minutes. And then it turned into a half hour once it started getting more popular.
Yeah.
And then I just did away with the feature artist because, you know, it was popular
That's just
enough.
in case.
Yeah, it was popular enough. And if you're a feature artist, depending on, you know, who you are, you're going to tell your friends, hey, come this week, I'm featured artist, you know?
Right.
So that would get more audience, hopefully, too. And the cool thing is because I would pick featured artists from, okay, here's a young kid versus here is somebody who plays cover shows all summer but wants to do some original stuff in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And so that first year I would pull the featured artists from all these different disparate groups. And like if somebody liked the featured art, was friends with the featured artist but liked the open mic, they'd still come back the next week. So by pulling from all of these different groups, you'd end up pulling this audience. And by the time we were at 2012, we were averaging like 22 people on the list a night, which in an open mic situation is huge, honestly.
Right.
And what was cool is we actually had a ton of audience that just came for the show too.
That's nice, because usually at an open mic, everybody in the crowd's waiting for their chance to get up.
Yes, and this included, it got to the point, though, where people would show up at the same time and the list would look almost the same. So it got to the point where I did something to cure that, and it also cured, you know, sometimes there's those people who, I'm just going to play outside until it's my turn to play, then go in, and then go back and play outside. And again, one thing that I took from the Evening Muse open mic was if you were in high school and needed to get out, we're going to put you somewhere in the first 5. Everyone else we're picking by random.
That's awesome.
And so that changed the list in a way that it was a different show every single time. And you know, if somebody came up to me and said, hey, look, I've got to work at like 6 a.m, can I go early? Then I'd make exceptions for that. But other than the exceptions, going random meant that the people who were showing up for the show wouldn't see the same 8 people in the first 2 hours before they had to leave.
Sure.
And it also meant that you had to be back there to know when you were going. If you were out front, we're not running out front to get you to come play. You had to be back there and supporting the other artists.
That's a big deal.
It is. It really, really is.
The podcast that I'm obsessing over right now is Kill Tony, and it's just where they have 2 comedians on a panel basically draw names out of a bucket and let open micers come up and do 60 seconds, and then they critique them on the thing. But like, if they draw the name out of the bucket and they don't come up, they get blacklisted.
Oh, wow.
I know that's harsh, but he's a roast writer.
Yeah.
They're comics. They're ruthless.
Yeah.
So they'll get blacklisted. Okay, this name is no good anymore. We will keep this name to the side. When we see it again, you get like a probation period.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So they want the same thing. They're like, there are people in this room that are sitting here watching you do your thing. You should respect them and do the same thing. Mm-hmm. You should show them the same respect that they're giving you.
Yeah, and if people came up and they were untuned, I would take one song away from them and call their tuning one song, because when you have 22 people on a list,
you got to move them.
Yeah, it's got to be a machine. It can't be
right.
It can't be the okay do, because in the front of the coffee shop, there's people working that want to get out too.
Sure.
There's people that have to close the coffee shop. There are people that, and if I were nice to everybody who wanted a tune, it would be. But the fact that it was an efficient open mic that was random in the order a lot of times, meant that we would have legitimately 20 people there just listening.
That's awesome.
And it really, really was. And some weeks it would be 10, other weeks it would be like, wow, I don't recognize any of these people who aren't playing. And that was even cooler, honestly.
Yeah.
And after 5 years, there's only so long that you can do something. And
sure.
After about 5 years, there were some schedule issues, because I was now working for Coastal Carolina as opposed to the school district, and there were some scheduling issues, and I couldn't, I couldn't do it anymore. But the one thing, when I do stop back, that still holds tight is the one thing that I tried to maintain through all of that was, number one, there's a front room with coffee. If you want to talk, you can talk in the front room with coffee. You
right.
do not talk back here. Number two, if you're new and you're just kind of getting your footing on a stage, we love you.
Yes.
This is a safe place for you. And that safety, I've noticed still holds true no matter who's hosting it on any given day, is that idea of you are safe to be on the stage and do whatever. You are safe to mess up and figure it out in the process.
Yes.
You are safe to completely bomb and then come back and fucking kill it next week.
Dude, those bombs are so necessary.
Yeah, they are.
They're so necessary.
They absolutely are. And to have a safe place for those bombs.
Right.
That was the one thing that I think the living room did, but not as well as we did with Fresh Brewed. Because honestly, there were times when somebody came up and did a cappella for the first time, and they started crying in the middle of it because of their fear. It's not like they were sad. It was just like that fear. And I remember somebody going up and actually, from the audience, going up and giving the person a hug on stage, and then going back and sitting back down. And that sort of stuff that's
magic.
It really is.
That's so good.
It really, really is. And don't get me wrong, that's better than money. You need the money, but that's still better. That's still better than the money right there.
Oh, 100%. And that is so necessary, though, to, like you say, to get out there and make mistakes. Because the only difference in us who have been doing this for a while and those who haven't been is we're better at hiding when we make a mistake.
Oh, God, yes.
We're just better at hiding it.
I mess up every show.
But right. And I remember those times when I would make, and I still do it. Like if I'm on stage and I hit a wrong note, I'll laugh.
Yeah.
Or it's because it's funny, you know. I mean, it's funny. But if I'm by myself and I make a mistake or I hit a bad note, I take notes from Jim James, who has arguably one of the greatest voices around, but still, he'll miss a note every now and again, but that's what makes his voice so great is that we know it's his. Mm-hmm. There's that's his throat is making that sound, not these. Of course, he's got reverb slapped on a good bit, but still, if you can't have a bad voice and throw reverb on it,
no, you need it's reverb's just going to make the mistake seem worse, honestly.
Right. Exactly.
So you need to have a good voice to do that. And honestly, we would throw a little bit of reverb on the people at the Fresh Brewed open mic. But
Oh, you got to, man.
yeah, honestly, some people wanted more, and I'm just like, no, I'm running this sound. I know what
I know what you need.
Yeah. But out of everything, like, if even if it wasn't the rest of the songwriter stuff, if my only legacy was running that open mic, those two open mics for that total combined of like 8 years, I would be okay with that, honestly.
Man, that's why we love you, Brian. I have to. We're scooting up on the 2 hour mark, so we'll probably be shortly after that, trying to wrap it up. So, you were the first musician that I met in this area, and you were even back then. Then this was in 2006, and even then, like, you were doing the same things that you're doing now, and like fostering like helping people find their footing. And I didn't have a voice back then.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't established my voice or my anything yet. I was just a babe in the woods, man. And you pointed me in the right direction, dude. You had a lot to do with where I ended up, and I appreciate that. I've been waiting for this episode for a long time so that I could tell you that in person, man.
Well, thank you so very much. Honestly, all I've ever wanted to do is create opportunities and an environment that I didn't have when I was starting.
That's beautiful, man.
And like my first show, like honestly, I started playing, and my first playing in front of people were on steps at parties at like 1 a.m. when people were hammered. And it just so happens the bar that I worked at, the bar manager came into one of these parties like, I didn't know you played. He's like, you want to play next Thursday? I didn't have a PA system. I didn't have anything. And so yeah, my first like my college town didn't really have any open mics. And so my first show was no preparation for how to sing into a microphone. Like for me, singing into a microphone was like 6th grade chorus,
Yeah, for sure.
And so my first show, I'm sure it was. I shudder to think, but what was cool was, since it was where I worked at least I got that sort of. That's cool. Just feel it out, get your footing. If it wasn't someplace that I had worked at, oh God, I probably wouldn't play music today, honestly, because I would have hated that so bad.
Yeah.
But that place, at least that one place gave me the opportunity to grow in there. But at the same point in time, like, I was running the whole 3-hour shows myself, where when I started, it would have been better if I were part of a bill where it's like, okay, you've got an hour, they've got an hour, they've got an hour. And so there are a lot of times with some of the younger kids or some people who might have full-time jobs that don't want to necessarily make music a career, but want to play out every now and again. I love giving those opportunities to those people, because music is love, and if you can share the love in
Damn right it is.
if you can share the love in any way you can, then it's going to come back to you, in ways that you might not expect, and ways that you might not even recognize when it happens. But being able to give away so much love through music has been really the most rewarding part of my entire life, and it's pretty special, man.
That is special, man. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I know it's true. Like, I know you, and I know that you mean all of that.
I do. I don't think, if I didn't give away so much, I think I'd be miserable by holding it all inside. And
that's true. That's real.
It is. And again, it goes partially back to the idea of, all artists and musicians being a little bit crazy, and needing to get rid of some of that. But I really feel like, and I look at some of the musicians who were in some of the open mics that I've run, and especially some some of the younger kids, not kids anymore, but some,
Yeah.
like I know that when they first moved to town, Liz from Oracle Blue was one of my open mic kids at Fresh Brewed Coffee House. I don't know if you know Kaylee Spivey or not. She's in a band called Small Talks.
I've heard of that through
And
Liz.
and they've done the Warped Tour 2 years, and she was one of my open mic kids. Charles Grace, who moved out of town, but Sleeping Policeman, he was one of my open mic kids. And there's these musicians who have done
Me.
yeah, absolutely. I'm looking more at like the Fresh Brewed fostering area. Like they were some of my open mic kids there too. And there's so many just younger musicians that filtered themselves through through that open mic. What was interesting too, the living room open mic. Phil Fox, going back to him again, he, after his band Wicked Gift lost Rebecca, the violin player, when she moved to Florida, he kind of thought his band was over, but he ended up meeting a guitarist named Sam Favada at that open mic, and that led to a new iteration of his band Wicked Gift. And so, you know, and that was just, and Phil came just because he's like, well, I guess if the band's not going on, I guess I got to figure out the solo thing.
Yeah.
But what was funny is the band got back together, and he didn't really start playing solo until like last year. Like he was doing some minstrel stuff for the Renaissance Fair down back behind the Rat Hole. But he's now doing some solo stuff, and he's one of those people who said, this is out of my comfort zone. I'm most comfortable in a band. He came down to the open mic at Borgata last night, and I could literally see him strumming with confidence that he didn't have just 3 months ago. And to me, here's a seasoned vet who's probably the most creative person in town. He's a songwriter. He's a playwright. He's drawn his own comic book. He's written his own novella. I mean, this is a creative cat.
Yeah.
And to know that just like open mics and me putting him on shows solo with him has actually helped somebody who I look up to. I mean, I think that's freaking amazing too. So,
well, nobody better to be manning the helm of that scene than you, and you're 100%, I believe, at the forefront of that.
Well, thank you.
And I'm so glad that you're because you're doing what I wish I could do for the community, but I just don't have because you've got that little bit more extrovert than I have, and I really appreciate the fact that you do that for this community. The thing that I won't do for the community, I appreciate that you will.
And I'm also lucky that
I say I won't. That sounded bad, but like
I know what you mean.
Yeah, okay.
I'm also lucky though that I have a day job with a super flexible schedule, because that allows me to say, okay, I'm going to put these two people on the show rather than I need that $100.
Right.
And so the day job really, really helps me out in terms of allowing me to do exactly what I want to do with music. If I didn't have that, would I still try to do? I'd still put people on some stuff, but it wouldn't be as often, because it's like, well,
I need the money.
Yeah, it's like either this person goes on or I don't pay rent, you know?
Right.
And so the fact of the matter is teaching at Coastal and them being super great with my schedule, honestly, has given me the opportunity to do all of that. And even before working at Horry County Schools, I got a shit ton of comp time that I could, like, if I was playing a late show, I could comp time the next morning if I didn't have a specific, I've got to be here to film.
Yeah.
You know, so I've had the luck of flexibility in my schedule since I've been down here for the full-time jobs that has really allowed me to do what I want to in music from a passion standpoint, as well as from an artistic standpoint. It allowed me to play places where, like, oh, you're not going to let me play 50% originals? Fine, whatever. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I've been able to open up for 6 cover bands at the House of Blues and play original sets where I've only thrown in 1 or 2 interpretations.
That's so funny. House of Blues loves a tribute band, don't they?
Live Nation does. I attribute that to Live Nation and not the House of Blues because when Live Nation bought them out, things completely changed. Up until that point, there were some great concerts that came through.
Man, I know we talked about that on the podcast with somebody. I can't remember who it was. But just talking about like they always do the tribute bands. I think it was with Steve Blevins. Dude, I don't understand why. It's the House of Blues, man. Like
Once Live Nation took over, I think it all has to do with profit margins and stuff like that. Where before Live Nation, it's like, hey, can we make some money back on this? Cool, let's book it.
God, I hate.
Because if a band says this is how much we want, and they figure out, well, we're only going to make this much off of it, Live Nation won't do it. Where beforehand, it's like, oh, we'll make this much off of it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And also Live Nation will be like, well, if we put them in Myrtle Beach, that might take away from the Fillmore in Charlotte the night before, so we're not going to put them in Myrtle Beach.
Now that's just wrong.
Yeah, I know.
That's just dirty.
It is. Dirty. So all of it really went downhill from the Live Nation in terms of what the House of Blues from the main stage, but locally the House of Blues. That's
done a lot of good for us though because we get those gigs now.
Yeah, locally speaking though, the House of Blues has done good stuff for local musicians, honestly, as well too. So I like to separate when people say the House of Blues this. I always like to push that to Live Nation because the House of Blues themselves.
I'm glad you did that because I hadn't thought that.
The House of Blues themselves, as the staff, have been absolutely wonderful to me as a local musician. I mean, they've given me the opportunity during the off season when the decks closed and the restaurants open. I've played every Tuesday night for like the last 6 years there on the restaurant stage.
Yeah,
and for the last couple years, and the person who I worked with. For this has moved on to another job, so I'm not sure if it'll happen this year, but they've given me the opportunity to, on Sunday nights during that off season, to have like an acoustic showcase for people. And they don't pay because that would be everybody would have to sign a 1099 or a W-9 or whatever. But what they do is they do this prize giveaway that includes like a $50 gift certificate and and 2 concert tickets, a voucher for 2 concert tickets. And so the way that I work that is I make sure everybody has. I put 2 other people on other than myself, and I make sure everybody has 2 shows during that showcase
That's pretty
period.
cool.
So that way everybody gets one of those $50 gift certificates and 2 concert tickets, too, for playing 2 hours on the restaurant stage. And whatever tips they make in the jar when they're playing, they keep those tips as well, too. I don't know if that's going to happen this year, but the fact that they were willing to say, hey, let's do a local artist showcase during dinner time on Sundays, that's
a big deal.
Yeah, and to me, that's the House of Blues versus Live Nation.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I'm glad you said that because I totally was like thinking, oh, the House of Blues is, but yeah, it is Live Nation. I've got to check. We played there for the Myrtle Beach Christmas thing. Where you get paid according to how many tickets show up.
Oh, they don't do that anymore, thank God. But yes.
Well, you get paid according to how many tickets show up. I have a check for $41 from Live Nation that I never cashed, just because it's got my name on it from Live Nation, and I'm like, man, that's cool. I'm going to keep this check forever. I'm never going to cash it.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I know that. Like even back in the day, right before the switchover, like I've pretty much played everywhere on that. I don't want to call it a campus, but on that property. I've done the deck stage for various, usually charity events, but also a couple times when whoever the main person was and they needed somebody to fill in, I've jumped in on the deck there. I've done the room off to the side where all the art is. I've played that room. I've played the deck leading into the main hall for a zombie walk that they were having there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it really, really is. I've played the main stage. I've played the blue room upstairs. I did the after party for an OAR concert up there in like 2007
That's pretty
or
neat.
2008. It really, really was. And so they've been really, really good to me. And I try, if they've got a charity event going on, I'll always volunteer to play that just because they've been good to me, so I want to be good to them as well too. But again, that's me separating the House of Blues from Live Nation.
I've done the outside stage, the inside restaurant stage, and the big stage.
Mm-hmm.
There's only 3 that I have. We had this gig that we were going to be getting at the Indigo Room, the blue room upstairs, but I don't know if that fell through or not. But something else happened.
Yeah, it's a cool little room too. And I've played the outside in the courtyard for a couple things as well too. And that's cool having people sit around in the courtyard while you're playing too.
That is one of the neatest little spots, like right where you're going. You can either go into the restaurant or the venue. Man, I love that little
that
spot.
courtyard is absolutely amazing. And it's, if you're a fan of folk art, that whole property is pretty amazing.
Oh yeah,
too.
The green room, man. Like Smitty talks about it all the time. But he wants to build a room in his house to look like it. He's so obsessed with it. But the
that's
green
his
room
art style too. It really is.
It is. But like it's like all of the art and all of the cool stuff that's back there. Like when you walk into that stage, right backstage, and you see all of the drum heads of all of the artists that have played on that stage. And then, man, that's humbling, dude.
It really is.
That's so humbling when you see, oh, shit, like this is legit. This is it.
Shit just got real.
Right.
And looking at those drum heads really makes me sad for the Live Nation thing again, too, because those drum heads to me are the House of Blues and not Live Nation.
They are. That's so true.
And seeing some of those bands, I've seen Flogging Molly there 4 times, and to find their drum head there, it's like, man, that's pretty amazing. And actually, interestingly enough, I saw an old Silenced drum head there, Jeremy Dunham's old band before.
Oh, shit.
Yes, when he had the more rock and roll, like straightforward rock and roll band. I mean, the drum head from his band is up on those walls too.
I know nothing of that. I know him from Potato Heads, and that was it. Potato Heads, and then to now.
This was pre-Potato Heads, actually. I met him actually also at the living room, and he came to an open mic once. Was the first time I met him, and he looked a lot different than he does now. Clean shaven, hair short. Shorter, I should say.
Yeah, right.
But he did not have that cool looking beard.
We all of us have done grown into our adult selves.
Yeah,
fully.
We're still doing it, one or the
other. we're still searching for what that may be.
Yes, indeed.
But no, that's really cool though. Like. That when you see stuff like that, and now I got the opportunity to open for Corey Smith one New Year's Eve for a sold out crowd, man.
Oh, nice.
And I've been in that sold out crowd before for that show, and just to be like, I remember thinking at that show when I had seen it, years before, like just seeing somebody come out with just an acoustic guitar, thinking I can do that. I can do that, and then, a few years later, getting that call of like, hey, how would you feel about opening for Corey Smith on New Year's Eve at the House of Blues? And I'm like, having trouble responding because I'm like, man, this is a big deal for me, man. Like, there was a lot, I was, not so much anymore because I don't listen to much music these days. But I was a huge Corey Smith fan back then, like I was very obsessed with his sound, and a lot of his songwriting kind of shaped how I was writing at that particular time, like that. You listen to my songs from that period of my life, and it was all about drinking and partying and, college stuff, same his style of things. And, moving on and getting into other types of music has altered my songwriting even more now, but just back then, that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that whole backstage area.
It's overwhelming.
It really, really is. And even if you are just opening up for a cover band,
right,
it's still, you're still in that history. You're still in that, wow, I'm sitting on the same couch in the green room that who might have sat in. You know?
Right.
Like, I know the first time I was ever in that backstage area wasn't for playing. It was actually thanks to Scott Mann. Actually, Government Mule played, and we went back and met Warren Haynes. So,
oh man,
yeah, that was pretty damn amazing. So,
Warren's great. Warren was my favorite guitar player for a long time.
And so, yeah, so that was absolutely amazing. And to know then just that, wow, I just pulled a beer from the same fridge as Warren Haynes, you know?
Yeah.
And that sort of stuff. And watching from that little side view of just nobody being there and then people being there and then it getting crowded. Like, even though it was just a tribute band, Rumors was a sellout. So I opened up for, when I opened up for Rumors, I just opened up for a sold out show, and it was just like,
how accurate are they? They're pretty accurate.
They're not bad. I mean, they had 2 guitar players because nobody can.
Well, they had to replace.
Nobody can be Lindsey Buckingham by himself. So,
which is why they hired 2 guitar players to replace him.
Yep. And Rumors has the same thing because, again, nobody can be Lindsey Buckingham by himself. But
right.
But yeah, they were pretty good, honestly. I could only stay for a little bit after my own show because I had another show that night.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were actually very, very good. And what, you know, the cool thing was I actually had the chance for one of the shows to have my parents backstage with me.
Oh man, that's nice.
Yeah, and that was really, really cool. My wife's gone backstage a few times with me, and some other friends a couple times. But the one with my parents, I think.
See, that's when it's cool.
Yeah,
that's like having. They say that Christmas sucks until you have kids.
Yeah.
You know, that's what's cool about that is like you get to see the amazement in the eyes of the other people who like, you know, this is what I do. You know, this is the community I'm part of. And when they walk back there and like now you're counted amongst all, you know, there's cornbread stickers on a few of those, you know, in between a couple of those breaker
fridges,
boxes on drum heads. You know, we've got like when somebody comes in back there, whoever it may be, they see a cornbread sticker or a Kelsey Hudgins sticker that I've put on one of the walls random. That man, like now I'm part of this community too, and that's a big deal to them.
One of my favorite things too, and I know the House of Blues has never been the best for pay, honestly.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
At the same point in time, they've always been better than everybody else for advertising you.
That's true, and that so counts for a lot.
It really, really does. So I take that as part of the overall package. I mean, the fact of the matter is if I'm playing a restaurant gig, my name's still up on that marquee, and
that counts for more than you know.
Yeah, it really, really does. And along those lines, my very favorite one of those was I was playing the restaurant the night that the Avett Brothers were doing the Cheerwine Give Back concert in the main hall. Oh, nice. So on the same day, my name's flashing on the marquee and the Avett Brothers' name's flashing on the marquee. And I'm just like,
what more do you want
in
the world?
I can fucking die happy now. You know? And what was very cool was like I know, like I'm an Avett's Brothers fan. More live than the albums are nice, but live they are absolutely amazing.
Man, we got to see the Thursday show this past year.
Yeah, I got tickets for all 3, honestly, just because. And I'll get to that in just a second. But in the restaurant, their dad and their grandmother were actually in the restaurant while I was nice. Playing. So that was very, very cool. And walking by, the dad went with the thumbs up as they were walking out, and I'm just like, hell yeah!
That means I'm doing something right.
Absolutely. But it's forget where I was going to go after that. Damn it!
You were talking about their dad and grandmother in the main room. You bought all 3 shows.
Yeah, all 3 shows. That's right. When they did all 3 shows in a row, there's only one song they did all 3 nights. There's only about 8 songs that they doubled up on. That's how many different songs they played during that three-day set.
I love that.
I do too. I absolutely love that.
Everybody that went to all three said that Thursday was the best day, was it?
I preferred, it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? I preferred Friday for the main reason they played Emotionalism straight through.
It's my favorite album.
Mine too.
I missed it. God.
So if you're not an Emotionalism fan, Thursday was a phenomenal day.
God, Thursday was great, but man, Emotionalism is the album.
Yeah, Thursday was an amazing day, but for me, Friday, just the fact that they played front to back Emotionalism was just like, I'm getting chills just talking about it right now, to be honest with you.
Man, that upsets me that I missed that, man.
So yeah, they did that straight through, and I'm just like, joy.
That album is the reason why I predominantly sing harmonies with when given the opportunity, because hearing them two, I figured that with their voices, if I could find somewhere between them, if I could find the harmony line that they're not doing,
yes,
that's like getting a master's degree in harmonies.
Nice.
Because if because both of them, they're not really singing a melody. Both of them are kind of singing harmony lines, that are not necessarily melodic with the music, but
they almost phase into a melody. Yeah.
And it's sort of like, and me and Smitty do the same thing, to where we'll sort of like go around each other. Like we don't really necessarily, and it's mostly like melody, whatever's predominant, but one person, we don't have one like I'll stay high and you stay low. There's none of that. There's just, whenever you go high, I'll just drop lower, and listen to Emotionalism specifically is a clinic on how to do that.
It really is. And I don't know if it has to do with the fact that they're brothers and they
sure,
because locally speaking, Liz and Cynthia. Well, Cynthia's up in college right now, but Sisters Fair, their harmonies are just like, yeah. Wait, what? What? That is amazing harmony, and I know a lot of it has to do with the fact that they've got that familial similarities to them as well too, which really adds to that. When one goes high, one goes low, or when one does, here's this, here's the third, or here's the fifth, then it's just like, oh wow, they did that, And so I think maybe that since they are brothers as well too, they have that innate sound where they have similar timbres, and because of that timbres, they can do a lot more interesting things with harmonies than people who don't have similar timbres when they do harmonies.
Right. It's amazing, man. By the way, listen to Emotionalism.
Yes.
Listen to that album.
Yes.
And I'm going to say it again, man. I just wish that there were some bands that would just like stop after a while. Avets may be one of those bands for me. I'm not too, and then granted, they're like, when I saw them do "Ain't No Man," which I think is probably the song they did all 3 days.
No, it was actually, wow, I'm just blanking on the name of it. There's a darkness inside.
Oh
it's covered in light.
Head full of sorrow.
Yeah, road full of promise. Yeah. That was the one they did all 3 days.
Which is a beautiful song, by the way, and we do that one in Cornbread. But just when I saw them do "Ain't No Man" live and saw how the entire room like reacted to that, it was different than hearing it live for sure. But I'm just like, y'all are going ape shit over probably the worst song they're going to do today.
Yeah.
And nothing against the Avets.
No, but honestly, there comes a point where, like, I'm not a huge fan of what they just released. That high stepping
thing. The video's awesome.
The video's amazing.
The video's great. Listen to it on mute. It's great.
Yeah, the video's great. But here's the thing, and I've said this for the last 2 albums. I buy the albums so I can learn the songs, so that way I know what I'm listening to live. Because they're going to sound different live. They're going to sound better live. They're just some bands that were meant to be live bands. Avett Brothers are one of those. Pearl Jam's another one. Pearl Jam's another one where if I don't hear another album again, it's like, okay, but if they come live close to me, I want to see them live because they are that good of a band live.
Yeah.
Then there are just some bands that are those bands. And I kind of feel that, oddly enough, that's true with more of my musician friends here. Like, my albums are okay, but I feel like the emotion comes across better live than they do on the album.
When you get to see it, when you get to watch it happen, you know, that's a big difference.
Like, honestly, I want my next album to be a live album. Just because there's certain songs that I've recorded that I've never put on an album because it doesn't capture the feel that I want it to feel. It doesn't convey exactly the same thing that it conveys when it's done live.
Right.
And they were quality recordings. It's just like, no.
I'm a big fan of live music. Like, I really like listening. I'm not a big fan of crowds, so I don't get to experience as much of it as I would love to, but I like to listen to live music. I want to hear the mistakes. I want to hear the human element. I want to hear that because the human element's the greatest part of music.
Yes, it really is.
And to erase that is...
And we've digitized so much of that out right now. And
it's
that's
so
sad. It
really is. You think about the albums that shape you as an artist, and they're not perfect.
No.
In any way. There's so much difference in all of those different things. Like, I hear, like, even in emotionalism. Like, yes, musically, I don't think that they hit a bad note or a sour note or anything in that, but when I hear that, I don't hear them sitting in a room doing that a dozen times. Like, that feels like a one take. You know, that just seems like, and that's the way I like it. I like one take stuff, man.
Yeah, if you're on your fifth take, you don't have the same emotion that you have. I mean, I've been lucky in the stuff that I've recorded that Ken at Southern Harmony Studio in Florence is the master of punch-in. So, so I can, like, he is so good at punch-in. It means that I can just go back to that one word and do a little bit of lead up, punch in, and do a little bit of lead out, and not have to get up for the emotion of the whole song again.
Yeah.
And I can just get into that and just push it all into that one phrase or that one word, as opposed to just getting that same emotional level for the one song. So recording, I've been lucky that he does punch in so very well. And actually, his studio in Florence is really cool because it is in an old Taekwondo studio that used to be a gas station. So it's big enough right now.
Where is that?
It's off of Second Loop or Third Loop Road. It's one of those loop roads in Florence.
I'm from there, kind of.
So it's like it used to be like he had a smaller one off of Celebration Avenue.
Okay.
But now it's down like one block away from like the Walmart. If you make kind of the left past the Harris Teeter down off of, and then you end up to a Walmart. It's whatever loop roads like after that.
Carolina Supply House, right there.
And so it's down there, but it's big enough that I really think the way the studio's set up, I didn't for the Damn the Consequences EP, I wasn't in a booth. I was sent a room getting the room reverb for singing.
I love it. And it sounded great, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I listened to it on the way home for Father's Day.
Excellent. Thank you. And what's cool, though, is it's big enough that I think I can fit about 20 people up in front and actually do a live album in that studio.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yes. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of do a double thing where if it just ends up, we pick the best songs and it ends up as one album, cool. If it ends up as here's the high energy album to be released and here's something just for the website, that's cool too. Or if it's like, okay, here's a release for March and here's a release for October, then that's cool too. But I want to do like an hour and a half of the more chill kind of storyteller type songs, and then I want to take a break, rearrange the studio, and do some time with the higher energy songs too then. And and just have the audience in for both of those as well too, and
that's a neat idea.
And really see what I can, and I want to have the audience mic'd with the ability to mute that channel,
Yeah.
or bring that channel way down. Which, if it's in the studio, all of those mics are going to be mic'd separately,
Right.
And I've already talked, and I got to figure out the exact time, but Corinne and Jeremy said they'd be more than willing to do some background music and even some background vocals for me. Phil Fox, again, who's played keyboards on my Songwriter's Lament album, said he'd play some keys, and so I just Jose Rangel from Canopy Hands,
They are stupid good.
Who's their drummer? He said I don't want full drums, but he's great at percussion, so he said he'd do some percussion for it as well too. So I'm working on this group of musicians to not play every song, but but to come in where necessary for them.
Right.
It's like I only want them playing the songs they feel,
Sure.
And if that's every song, great. But if it's not, chill out for a song or two if you're not feeling it,
Yeah.
Because there's some of the faster songs where it's just like, maybe not,
Yeah.
just because it might not be their, like there's a song called Inadequate that I've recorded a bunch and never put it on an album because it's too high energy to legitimize just a safe studio recording. But I'm hoping to put that one on. But that's probably going to be one where it's just me and maybe a percussionist, because everybody else that's ever played that, except for Brett from Painted Man with me, has actually not really followed up, honestly, because it's weird timing, it's weird energy, it goes all over the place. The beginning of it, I'm doing a lot of and it's a weird song for other people where it fits perfectly solo in my wheelhouse,
Yeah, well, that's some songs, and that's one thing that it takes a while for musicians or band members to understand, is that some songs are just best. Like sometimes it's better if you don't add anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's best to leave a song just voice guitar.
Yep.
And nothing else. And sometimes the song, and it's hard. I understand it's hard. And for me, when I was in my teen years of being a musician, not when I was a teenager, but you know what I mean. In my teen years of musicianhood, I was I couldn't fathom there being like, okay, so you mean that you don't need me to do anything here? So because I couldn't fathom me not being needed, like, oh, so you mean you don't need me to play anything here? Like, I'm thinking that no matter what I do is going to add to this by science, because I'm adding something. There it's going to be fuller, but no, that's not the case at all times. Sometimes they say less is more, and that's real. Like sometimes to take away those things that are surrounding just the voice and just the guitar are taking away from the song.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go back to a band like The Cure. An album like Disintegration is full of texture and layers.
Yeah.
And all of those songs work with that. But think back to an earlier album, like one of their first albums, like Boys Don't Cry. And the song Boys Don't Cry, you can't have that texture or that layering. You can't have that texture or layering on that. That would completely dilute the song, honestly.
Right. It
would dilute the rawness. It would dilute the fact that he was like an 18-year-old in that emotional state, in that post-punk England, So the music serves the song, not the other way around.
Right. It's all about the song. It's whatever the song needs.
Yes.
It's always about the song, not about us.
Mm-hmm. And the music serves the song and not the other way around.
Right.
And it takes all of us at some point to figure that out. Nobody goes into music just knowing that and knowing how to deal with that instantly. I mean, there were times when I was just like, oh, I've got to play this as fast or as hard or as full as I can. And there's songs now where I'm barely playing, like, I'm singing a lot, and it's just like, here's one little strum that I'm going to mute quick. And admittedly, those are slower songs. There's a song off of my Songwriter's Lament album called Fine, where I'm hardly playing any guitar while singing. It's like I want to focus all of the audience energy on the pain of the vocals.
Yeah.
And the music, when I do play some of the guitar, it just goes to just kind of lift up the vocals rather than cover up anything else. And figuring that out, when I first wrote that song, that's not how I played that song at all. But figuring out over time even how to best serve the song is, and it's kind of weird. It might come down 5 years and the song might be better served in a different way for however I am emotionally at that point in time too. And I think people who, even with their own songs, just stick to this is how it was written, this is how I'm always going to play it, are doing they're doing themselves a disservice, but they're doing the song a disservice because it's not serving the song. And maybe I found for that one particular song this way, the perfect way to do it for myself. But I'm not going to lock myself into that.
That's smart.
I'll noodle with it at home and be like, no, that doesn't work. And and well, not just that, but as we change, as we grow, and our songs mean different things to us as we go along.
That's a fact.
We've got to figure out maybe. Like, I've changed individual lines in songs without changing the whole song, just because the new lines have better served where I am with that song too. And so editing isn't just, in my opinion, a one-off process of, okay, it's not the old Hemingway write drunk, edit sober, and you're done.
It's continuous.
Yeah, it's the how am I going to make this so that I can best communicate it to the people listening.
Right.
And when it comes down to it, it is really all about that connection of the communication of the song to the people listening. And along those lines, I used to, and I still, we're all our own worst critics.
Sure.
But I used to just throw away songs that could have been legitimate just because I felt something was wrong with it, in terms of my own personal biases, in terms of I don't like this strum pattern, but that didn't give the song a chance to grow into a new strum pattern, because keeping songs, I have a new method of whether I play a song out publicly or not, and it's not whether I like it or not, because we all hate what we do in a certain way. It's
true. It's a loving hate, but it's a hate.
It really is. But does it? There's a message that I'm trying to get out. It might be a feeling. It might be a thought. It might be something humorous. But there's something I'm trying to get out. Does this song accomplish that objective? And if it accomplishes that, it's the objective of whatever that song's objective is. Just because. If it met that objective of saying, hey, maybe the objective is just, I wrote this song for an old version of me to say, hey, you're not alone.
Right.
Maybe somebody else hearing that song will get that, hey, you're not alone too, if I meet that objective. If I throw that away, it's because, I don't like the bridge. Down the road, I could be taking away the opportunity to connect with somebody based on that song. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but I found that I throw out a lot less right now. I've got so much half songs though on my phone, and because of that. But I found, again, music serves the song, and the song serves a greater connection with humanity. And if we can find that way to not throw out those connections. I think that's better serving music as a whole, honestly.
Absolutely. That's songwriting, man.
Yeah, and so
that's what it is.
So I'm trying not to be as hard on myself as I always have been, and if the song serves the purpose that I wanted it to, then boom, it's at least going to stick around for some editing and stuff like that. And there's a lot of songs that don't serve that purpose, but I find ways to recycle a lot of maybe riffs, or here, pull this one line out, or two lines out too. And I've been better at that than I really have been in the past too. That's
good, man.
It's a process.
Constantly growing.
It really is.
Constantly growing, constantly bettering yourself.
Yes.
Well, we are almost at the 2 hour and 45 minute mark.
Damn.
Believe it or not. And I would love to carry this conversation on forever, but I think that
you can invite me back anytime, and when our schedules work out, I'll happily come.
Well, we're definitely going to do this again, because I want to talk more about how our album release shows go whenever we inevitably have that. So
Absolutely.
I mean, that's because I'm going to be doing one of those, and surely you're never far away from releasing an album.
Now I'm looking at some time next spring, honestly.
Yeah,
hopefully.
So we'll definitely be getting back together to talk about that before next spring for sure.
Yes.
But Brother Brian, I definitely appreciate you being here, man. Thank you so much.
Me. This was absolutely wonderful.
And nobody better, guys, than Brian Roessler to head this scene in this area, the original music scene, and nobody does better than you to harness that or to harvest that in this area.
I try.
So
I don't
thank
always
you for
succeed,
doing that.
but I think that I succeed far more than I fail. So
that's all that matters, man.
Absolutely.
That's all that matters, man. All right, guys. Well, audio folks, thank you for listening. We've got a few international listeners now, and I appreciate you guys for listening all the way out in Ireland and Switzerland and Russia and Nigeria and Indonesia and all the places where I'm having downloads and things now. I appreciate you guys for listening. Please go check out Brian Roessler at Brian-Roessler, ROESSLER.com, and Brian_Roessler_music on Instagram, and Brian Roessler on Twitter, Brian Roessler Music on Facebook. Check that out. Go check out all of any open mics that you see, or anytime you see the name Brian Roessler, you should make sure that you show up wherever that is, because there's going to be some good shit going on whenever you get there. That's for sure. Please stop by mistuffpodcast.com or kelseyhudgins.com. Both of those will lead you to the same destination. And follow all of the social media links on the front page of the website. Also, if you want to follow me personally on social media, all of those links are on the blog portion of the website, so you can follow me personally there. And Kelsey Hudgins Music on Facebook as well. If you wouldn't mind dropping a like on that page, I'm posting all of my new music there. Please download the new single that I've released on iTunes, my first single on iTunes ever. I appreciate that. First single ever on iTunes. And where can the folks download your music?
Well, CD Baby sends stuff to Spotify if you stream. I'm not a huge Spotify fan, but I am on iTunes. My Bandcamp page, which is brianroessler.bandcamp.com. My last two albums right now, they are set at Name Your Price, which means if you want to download them for free, again, I've made my money back on them, and music is all about love, so I'm about sharing that love.
I love that.
However, with a Name Your Price, should you give anything, once it hits a certain amount, like it'll collect it, and once it hits a certain amount, I give that money to something called Sweet Relief, which is a charity that provides health care for musicians without health care.
Wow. See, this guy just keeps getting better. The more you talk to him, the more you love him. Goodness gracious. Brian Roessler, ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest people in the world. I'm just so glad to know you, man.
Pleasure's all mine, my friend.
I appreciate you. But yeah, folks, just do that. go to all of the links, click all of the buttons, share all of the pages. We're trying to build this community, and we have a huge scene here in Myrtle Beach of some really talented songwriters and musicians.
Per capita, the best songwriting group per capita that I've ever seen in my entire life, honestly.
That's great.
People talk about Nashville and Austin and New York and LA, which, don't get me wrong, they are all great scenes, but per capita, this is a tiny little freaking beach town. And to have the amount of amazing musicians and songwriters that we have in this town, I mean, I'm just happy to be considered one of them, honestly.
Same here.
That's how good this town is. It's like, wow.
It really is.
It really is.
It is a beautiful place, ladies and gentlemen. You should stop down here to Myrtle Beach, Myrtle's Inlet area, any chance you get to check out the fine music that we have. But before my phone dies, it won't charge for some reason because of computers. And before that happens, I want to go ahead and get out of here and get this intro done. But thank you guys so much for listening. Really appreciate you. I'll be tagging up Brian's links to all of his pages in the descriptions of all of these videos. So be sure to click all of those things. And once again, Brian, appreciate you being here, buddy.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. In a world full of shitty people, don't be one of those people. Be a good person. Peace, bitches. All right, YouTubers, hang tight for just a second. Let's get this intro thing going here. Let me close out all of these little notifications that I've gotten over the last couple of minutes. And I think this is our live from the Screwball Whiskey Studios portion here. Why not? Live from the Screwball Whiskey Studios. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, live from the Screwball Whiskey Studios. Hey guys, how you living? You doing well? Good. Glad to hear that. In this episode, Brother Brian Roessler of Brother Brian Roessler fame stopped by to talk about all kinds of things, songwriting, playing gigs, just a lot of behind the scenes of being a musician talk there towards the beginning. And then we veered off after that to different subjects and things. We tied everything together in a nice little bow, I feel like. So this should be an enjoyable conversation for you. And we did go pretty long here, so just in a bit of warning, I'll advise you to not try to listen to all of these things in one sitting, so that you're not getting sick of our voices. Do these things in bits. Try just take a few minutes at a time. And that's how I listen to podcasts. So all I listen to is podcasts. So I consider myself a professional. So I'm a professional. I tell you how to do it. Listen to them in portions. But anyway, we had a really good talk, and I've been waiting to get Brian in here for a very long time. I don't want to give too much of spoilers on the content, but Brian is he is the first musician that I met in the Myrtle Beach area, and one of the first people who kind of pointed me in a direction of a way to go to start being successful in this area musically. And so very, very good to have him on the podcast today. And there are links to all of his social media and ways to find him, where you can go to brian-roessler.com. And I say all of the social media links several times throughout the podcast. I think we actually go over those in the very beginning, if I'm not mistaken. So there's that. Click all of those links. Anything that says Brian Roessler, definitely click it and follow it and subscribe to it. He's actually in my YouTube channel on the follow my friends list. He is one of those friends I suggest you follow, so please do that. Other than that, please go to mistuffpodcast.com or kelseyhudgins.com, and all the links to my social media and the podcast social media are on that page, on the front page, and also the blog page there, which I update almost monthly, which I know I should probably do that more, but I'm a musician. I'm lazy. What can you say? What can you do? Yes, please go do that. There is Brian Roessler Music, Roessler, is available on iTunes and Bandcamp as well. If you want to go and check those Brian Roessler, I'm sure you could just Google Brian Roessler. I'm not sure that there's many Brian Roesslers in the world. Yeah.
There's actually a bass player in Minnesota named with my name.
Well, don't pick the bass player. Pick the amazing songwriter Brian Roessler, guys. Nothing against the bass player. I'm sure he's a good guy, but I'm sure that if you just do a little searching and I bet you could find links to all of those on brian-roessler.com. Mm-hmm. So everything will be there for you. Just go check that out through the website. And yeah, website looks good, by the way. I've been redoing my website a little bit to make it look a little more like me than just those random templates that they give you and such. But I'm not very computer savvy, but I'm pretty proud of what I've done. So please do stop by mystuffpodcast.com and Brian-Roessler.com for all the information to that. So I've already recorded over the content a little bit, so I should probably stop talking right now so that we don't rob any more content. Without further ado, episode number 153 of In My Stuff Podcast. Enjoy, motherfuckers. YouTubers, click the links in the center of the page, at the top of the page, all the buttons and all the things. Subscribe to all the channels that I've suggested here. Please do that. And in a world full of shitty people, don't be one of those people. Be a good person. Peace, bitches.